Oh, interesting.
That's my understanding.
I think a cushy chair. We just went and got
You have to have metal in both hips.
them.
And you have to
Would you
warm
like,
the
would you like
sun.
a cushy chair? Does it feel like?
Depends on how long.
I'm into making everybody uncomfortable, so we get out of here to.
Right.
But I will
Make
tell
them,
you,
make them stand or kneel.
at the Otasaga in the training, they all have really comfortable chairs.
You guys are live.
So you had
Otis
that,
Saga, is that
so
right
you
on
had
the
that going.
Yes,
south shore of Lakeport of the
Lake Otsego.
Otsego, okay. Did you go to Cooper's? Did you go to the baseball hall of fame?
Yeah, their opening reception was held there. It
Nice.
It was okay.
was okay. I mean, if I was a baseball fan, the fun part was, my stepbrother, avid sports, 5-letter guy.
So close.
He loved
So
Tony
close.
Oliva with the Minnesota Twins. When I was growing up, it was all about the Minnesota Twins. So I took a picture of flags for it. That was the best part. Turn on TV.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, David.
No, so how are you? You can now start.
You can start.
We have I think that's slow. I have 6:30. Anybody else have 6:30? So the April 14th meeting of the planning board of the town of Rochester. Call to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do the roll call, please.
Chair Rick Jones,
Here.
Peter Nelson,
Here.
Zoran Pinsky,
Here.
Helena,
Here.
there she is, Dave Roberts,
Yeah.
Jennifer Farnwell. Here. Hans, I'm gonna butcher that last name. Shall I announce myself?
And take note that planner and church is here. Attorney Gordon is here. And that's it. All righty, so let's jump right into it. First item is the decision for Capella. Bill Agers is here for the applicant. And as in the past, I'm not going to read the whole decision. I'll highlight some of the points. If you remember, this is the one where the at the end of the project, almost ready to do the decision, we found that the foundation for one of the houses had been put in, so we put it on hold until we could get it redone, get the maps redone. And Bill, that's all been done. We saw the map. So I think we're in good shape. The nothing has changed in terms of the notes and the specific conditions, namely the floodplain notes, the right to farm notes. In terms of findings or other specific conditions, there's really nothing with the exception, nothing significant with the exception of they having a claim of material having been buried on site. And so there's a note on page 5, number 2, which says in the event of discovery of buried or disposed material on this property as a result of building, septic, or well construction or construction of any sort, the applicant, builder, owner, or their assignees or contractors will handle the material in a manner consistent with best practices, including notification of appropriate regulatory or building entities at the local, county, or state level. That's about the only, I would say, on-call item. And Bill, specific conditions 1 through 2 will need to go on to the map. There's no particular finding of the planning board that I want to mention. I think you pretty much know the file pretty good. Does anybody have any comments? Hopefully you had a chance to read it. Do you have any comments on anything that you want changed? You have a question about?
I have a question that's pretty practical. Let's say it's the second lot is sold. How would the owner of that lot would comply, would know about this condition?
How will the owners of the lot comply with which condition?
With number 2.
Just lot 2 or lot 1 and?
Well, lot 1, I understand that they're gonna get the decision, but after they sell second lot,
After they sell, it's jump ball. That's it. This was for the, for purposes of when they're building, they're actually putting a foundation and finishing this house.
the first lot.
After that, it's between them and whoever sold it to them or.
No, I'm
not.
talking about second lot subdivision.
Right. Okay, so without any further ado, entertain a motion to approve the draft resolution, and let me just read the resolution of approval. Starting on page 5, as in the past, this conditional final approval expires in 180 days. And the applicant can ask for 2 additional 90-day periods upon application to this board and the resolution of this board if they so choose. You voting for this, if that's the way you go, allows me to sign the maps once all the conditions have been met. So what I'll do is draft resolution of approval was read and discussed by the planning board in a public meeting at the time and place of adoption. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion. Accept.
Peter makes the motion, second by
Second.
Peter. The other, David. Peter made the first, David made the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The motion is carried 7-0. Bill, you have your, they have their approval.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm giving this to you. And I'll tell you how to build the version of it tomorrow. Okay. The next one is Alan Linda. Bill, that just happens to be you as well. Yep. You have copies of that in front of you also. Dave, you and I talked a lot about in the specific conditions, how to deal with Sand Hill Road. You want to go through that? Because Bill had a question about that, and I think you answered it, but would you go through specific condition number 2 on page 4?
Yeah, well, the town permits access. In certain circumstances for a new lot that doesn't have frontage on a public street. In those circumstances. May be new to some of the planning board members, but there's a New York State Town Law 280A. That sets that such act, if you do that, such access can be by right of way or easement. But by definition, access suitable, I'm paraphrasing, for emergency services is considered a minimum of 15 feet. So that access, regardless of what town code or fire code says, that the town law says any lot must have, it doesn't have frontage on a public street. And the town allows this, which your code does. It's access must be to at least 15 feet of frontage on a public street. So that's that provision. I'm just gonna build, the chairman and I talked about the fact that since the plats filed by a licensed surveyor, the board can presume that that's the case. But because this is, remember that you don't have any road maintenance agreement or easement in hand for Sand Hill Road. So short of forcing some path to get one of those, Rick and I talked about this provision being in there.
And last meeting we decided we couldn't force an RMA for this road. So
But if it's private road, you said public, isn't it private?
If you're gonna have access by right of way or easement, i.e. a private road or driveway, town law says that access has to get to at least 15 feet of frontage on a public road.
which it does on Airport Road.
which in this case. would be Airport
To
Road.
public when it connects to.
Yes.
Okay.
So Dave, do I need to add
And
any?
Bill, I assume the existing Sand Hill Road's more than 50 feet wide, right?
Yeah, but it's basically what we call a user road.
Right.
I drove it actually the other day and it's clearly sufficient.
So Dave, do I need to have Bill make some sort of assertion on the map that,
I don't
that's the case
really,
for, it's good,
Counselor, I don't really know how to handle this in the absence of an easement or road maintenance agreement.
I mean,
What do we want?
what we did say is that specific conditions 1 through 4 have to be on the map. And so therefore, what you've written here will be on the map, and the assumption is that Bill as a surveyor.
Yeah,
has confirmed that,
it's on the
so-
map, that's basically the
sufficient.
best we can do.
Okay.
It's a note on a map.
Yeah.
Prepared by a licensed surveyor.
We have one with us tonight.
Then the second part of this is just reaffirming that that the lot 1 with the restaurant has retained the access to 209 and only emergency access to Sand Hill Road consistent with your prior
Right, that's exactly
site
what,
plan approval.
Right.
But the new lot 2, it has access on to Sand Hill Road on Sand Hill Road to Airport Road.
right. And number 4 in specific conditions on page 5 says. No further subdivision is permitted on the lot that's being subdivided until the road maintenance agreement is arrived at.
Yeah.
All right, so. Anybody have any questions?
I just have one thing, which is, on, the findings, it's just a type. A date typo. Findings number 1, revised documents on 11/14/2025, should be 2024.
24, yep,
Match.
okay, thank you, Peter. Anybody else?
Question. On condition number 3, it talks about planning board refers this application to the town. Does that mean that this needs to be or will be or has been referred to the town board? Or
Which,
Which condition?
number 3,
Specific.
specific conditions?
Additionally.
Oh, yes, you got to-
Certification.
on page 14,
It's on the bottom 4.
No, I see.
Speaks of referring the application to the town.
Yeah, it's for determination as to the condition of the private road and determination if such private road meets town standards for private roadways.
this one,
Decision is conditioned on compliance with any and all comments and determinations from the highway superintendent.
so the highway superintendent did give us a letter. And said that they have nothing to say because it's not a town road. If you remember,
Yes.
so,
So
Right.
125, 22L 1 and 2. Technically requires the planning board to grant a waiver of required lot frontage. That accesses by shared driveway in this case. So that's what that's doing. That provision states that the planning board is supposed to refer it to the town for review,
which we did,
which you did.
and they did not want to comment on it, so I'm gonna leave it there. Just gonna leave it there,
Okay,
okay?
so that's
Gonna leave
not
it
a
there.
to do, that's a, just saying it's been done.
It's been done.
Okay.
We did refer, it, and they chose not to make a
Okay,
comment.
good.
Okay, any other questions? All right, all the other conditions that you're used to with subdivisions, namely the 180 days. And the 2 additional 90-day periods. So I'll entertain a motion to approve this decision. Paulina, second by
Council.
Zorian.
All right, fine.
I thought I heard you.
Yeah.
Were you just clearing your throat?
No.
So
We'll take it
you're,
down.
you seconded it.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Passed 7-0.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The old one.
All right,
What are the odds?
Patty, we're gonna start charging you rent. I'll let you explain what's going on.
Absolutely. I brought, I have 8 copies of the revised
Thank you.
map. Don't we?
It's always nice to see you.
So,
I agree. You guys want to share?
oh, man. All right. So we were last before the board on March 31st. And we received the resolution of approval for this 2-lot subdivision. Subsequent to the final approval, the forester for the property reviewed the maps. And stated that the 50-acre rule was not for the lot size itself, but for the managed lands within the lot. So there's about 2.7 acres that is not forested, and it's meadowland, and therefore it's not included in the managed lands. So we had to revise the map to increase the acreage to have over 50 acres within the managed area. So basically, we took the lot on the northerly side of the road, we extended it northerly, so where it previously was 608 feet deep, now it's 885 feet deep. So I am requesting that the board indulge me on this action, and I'm requesting a waiver of the public hearing as one was just held last month. There was no public comment at that point in time. There's no substantial change to the subdivision. This is just to meet the 488 regulations from DEC, which was the primary reason for the subdivision in the first place.
And so a couple of things, we always ask for waivers in writing. It's in writing in the 3rd paragraph in the document that Patty gave us. I think since council, it's an amended subdivision, do we need to go through declaring ourselves the agency and then typing it?
No.
Okay, that's great.
Great.
fine. And then
Oh, and I also do want to state for the record that luckily we caught it the day before we filed the map with the county clerk. So this has not been filed. There's no map that needs to be rescinded.
That would be interesting.
That
We've already proved it.
We approved, yeah, we approved the prior one, which turned out to be incorrect in terms of acreage. They were going with 50 acres of land versus 50 acres of managed land.
So based on what was already approved, I guess, is this a lot line revision?
Yeah, you could say it's an amended subdivision where we're just moving the lot line a little bit more.
Well,
if we would have filed it with the county clerk, then it would have to be a lot line revision because it would be something that had been recorded, but we did not yet meet the conditions because we hadn't filed it with the county clerk.
so there's no argument here that it's exempt, that the revision we're considering is exempt from seeker. Not type 2,
Fair enough.
right? Okay, declare lead agency.
Type it as a type 2.
Oh, no, it's not, it's not
Is it
type 2,
unlisted?
it's unlisted. Unless there's a type 2 reason for it.
So it's unlisted, and do we
It's a-
have to
it's an
go,
amendment, it's an amendment to the subdivision approval, so it's like another, it's like a.
and do we have to go through a determination of significance?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
subject to seeker, yes, that's why I was trying to avoid that by saying it's a lot line revision, but,
Okay,
Yeah, it's not.
so
what,
Patty, tell the story a little bit more. I have to go get one of my determination of significant papers. I don't have it memorized. I think I have it right here.
so what we're doing here is we're playing off of the original subdivision, and the question for us now is, does this change in any way raise environmental issues? The change is extending that piece that's north of Cocath Road.
That's correct.
Okay, I don't have enough for everybody, so I'm gonna ask you all to share.
Why did it?
Pass that around.
Well, correct.
Make sure everybody has one or
The
you're sharing
forest,
with somebody.
And we wanted to make sure we maintain ample road frontage for lot number 2.
Okay, so first thing, let's, I'll entertain a motion to declare ourselves lead agency.
I'll make a motion.
We need
I
to
seconded.
lead agency. It was made by Dave Roberts, seconded by Helena. All in favor?
Yep.
Anybody opposed? 7-0.
To be clear, there's no other involved agencies, right?
That's,
Correct.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
um,
I just have a question. I recused myself from the previous one because of the decision.
you're gonna have to recuse. Both you and Hans are gonna have to recuse. Thank you.
Yeah.
So let me back up. At 6:51, Hans and Peter recused themselves
On Alan Lynn.
at 6:51.
No, and Turner, sure.
And the term.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, on this one.
Yeah,
6.
sure.
And let's go back and call for a vote.
You need somebody to make a motion,
Um,
a motion.
we'll re-motion it. Jennifer makes the motion,
All right.
Second.
Zorian seconds it, so we're re-motioning it. First and everything else. All in favor? Anybody opposed? So instead of 7-0, it's 5-0.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah.
And, okay, we need to type it as unlisted. Need a vote for that too.
No, you don't. It's
No?
unlisted.
Okay, so mark there, it's unlisted. And now what I'm gonna do is go through the determination of significance, all right? You're used to this,
And what we're talking about now is just the moving of the lot line for the subdivision. And
Correct.
keep in mind, the one environmental issue I could see is that this will make the lot eligible for the forestry program, right?
That's correct.
So the board doesn't make whatever conclusions it wants from that, but that's what we're doing here.
so I'm gonna quickly rattle through all of these, 1 through 11. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adapted land use plan or zoning regulation? I'll suggest something. If you have a problem with it, just let me know. No or small impact. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of land? No or small impact. 3, will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No or small impact. 4, will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No or small impact. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No or small impact. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No or small impact. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water or public-private wastewater treatment utilities? No for each or small impact. 8, will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historical, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No or small impact. 9, will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources? No or small impact. 10, will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No or small impact. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No or small impact. And so we have determined that based on the information and the analysis above and any supporting documentation, that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts. And I need a motion to that effect. Alina,
I make a motion
you make a motion that is negative deck.
that it's a negative.
Second, Jennifer. So mark them that negative deck. Alina moved, Jennifer seconded. And this is a voice vote, an individual vote. So we have to record what each person, how they vote. So Liz, Alina,
Aye.
Jennifer,
Hi.
Jillian?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
The chair votes aye, so each one of the members vote aye. So that's 5-0. If I said 6-0 before, I meant to say 5-0. For the original motion, all right, and don't let me leave tonight without signing this. Okay, I'll in a second. Okay, so that takes care of seeker. Pat, do you have anything else that you want to bring to the table? We need to vote on the waiver.
Yes, yeah, I'm asking the board this evening if they can vote on the waiver and, if it's appropriate at this point in time to grant the reapproval if the waiver is granted and the public hearing is not
Okay.
required.
So first, before we do that, let me bring the two members that recused themselves back into the meeting. You're officially part of the, no, you're not. No, you're not. You have to stay up, sorry. So we'll talk about the waiver. There's not going to be a decision tonight. It has to be rewritten. Our planner will do that. We'll have it for the 28th. Assuming the board has no problems with it. As far as the waiver, how does the board that's allowed to comment? The 5 that can comment, how does everybody feel about a public hearing, waiving the public hearing?
I have no problem with it.
I agree.
I agree. So let's I'll entertain a motion to waive the public hearing based on the fact that the applicant was before the board on March 31st. For a similar public hearing, there were no comments on the project. And this is just a addition of 3 acres. Making the ensuring that it complies with the 480A program, state forestry program. So I think there's a good rationale for that, particularly since we had no comments the last time from the public. So with that motion, and I'll help you with that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Granting the waiver. Anybody opposed? So ordered. 5-0 to approve the waiver of the public hearing. So, Patty, what we'll do is, David re-buckle the decision. And, we'll do that. At the
See you on the 28th, yes.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
okay,
Thanks, Patty.
And now we can bring back Peter and Hans at 6:53.
I have 6.
6:53. Peter and Hans, you joined us.
Famous comments.
Michael, Ryan, why don't you explain to the board why you're here?
Yeah, so the main reason I'm here tonight, I believe you're.
This is Emerson Rose, by the way.
Yes, you're very familiar with this property, on the law of Sanders. I apologize, my architect's not here tonight because he's teaching in the college. So basically, the main reason I put in a request for a amendment to the subdivision, lot 1 and lot 2, I would like to change the driveway locations. So there is no change with the lot line setback to the meters, and the houses will be moved slightly as well. Just to make it easier, I did provide this map to everyone as well, where you can see the original house location, driveway location, just for a comparison. So they're the main reasons I'm here tonight. Obviously, that will also influence a new road maintenance agreement, which I have already put forward with my lawyer. And an easement change will occur because of the driveway locations. But other than that, nothing else will change.
Okay, so this is the 3rd time this project's been before us in the last.
First time with me though.
That's true. Project was here originally about 3 years ago, then it came again for a change in lot 3, the size of lot 3. And the gentleman's here again, not the same gentleman, but different. To ask for essentially a change in the driveway locations. And the feeling was that since there was some significant changes to it, and the need for a whole new RMA, that it should come back to the board.
The only other major change as well, originally lot one was coming off Rock Hill Road, so now what we've decided to do to reduce disturbance on the property. We're aiming to have all the lots now come off the private road. So that means that's why the easements will have to change, but so now there will be nothing coming off Rock Hill Road on lot one. So it'll be coming off the private road instead.
So Mike, what is the best map for us to look at to understand?
So if you do want a comparison, this is obviously what we're proposing in the last one, but if you do want to see a comparison change to see what was previously, because to be completely transparent, I kind of inherited house locations and driveways without a lot of private previous owner. So since we went on site with architects and
Right,
engineers,
so the board has
this one as well.
the colored maps in the cellophane.
This is just to see, this is the only changes and let's see what is previously.
So describe to me on
So
this
you
one
can see,
slowly.
So once, sorry, I'm Australian, can speak fast. So once again, you can see the grade.
I speak the same language.
There we go. I'm not the only Australian in the village. So basically, as you can see on lot one, which is on the right hand side, you can see the grade original location for the driveway, the house and the septic family. The color version is basically how we're changing it from previously to now, and the same applies on lot two.
Now that everything is still within the same building envelope.
Yes, that is correct. And we're using the total disturbance for the original one was 2.78, and I think this is 2.8. So and I think the total disturbance allowance is 5 acres for the total project, so we're still very much on the
low side.
Yeah, on the low side, yeah.
There's just one access off of,
Yes, that's correct.
instead of two.
Yeah, correct.
And the reason for the change?
So the main reason is, like I said, I basically inherited this without a lot of thought, from my opinion, previously when we actually did the subdivision on the previous owner. So when you're actually on site, some of them are very steep. To go for lot one, I believe it's beneficial when moving the driveway away from the original neighbor, which is on the right hand side. So that was right on their driveway line. There's some beautiful trees in that area that I wanted to maintain as well. So by coming off the private road, it's actually, we don't have to do as much. It's a better angle to come in, so the grading's not as steep. And the same applies for lot two. Lot two specifically, it's all this invasive vegetation, that prickly bush. The original driveway was coming down with these beautiful trees that are still healthy. So the main reason was, once again, grading reasons and to try to maintain a lot of trees that are on that side. Another thing is the houses were very close to each other on lot two. And once again, lot one, the house location hasn't changed too much, but lot two, we just moved it a little bit around. So there's not that much changes.
And then in the new narrative that you provided us with.
Yep.
Well, let me go first to the old narrative. When yourself and Justin appeared.
Yep.
To work with us, or to work with me. You talked about another house on one or more of these lots. You're not doing that.
No, there's
That's
no changes for houses.
And the new narrative that you gave us doesn't make any reference to any new houses on
No,
any of
this
these lots.
happened. That was just a question about to see if that's the information. So,
Okay. And then you also supplied a new RMA,
yes, that's correct.
but we will need to have our attorney take a look at it to make sure it's done according to Hoyle.
Yep.
But explain to me what you had to change in terms of easements for that.
So once again, we inherited something that I personally would have changed. So the original plan, there was always an easement over. So lot three, which is at the back, that owned the majority of the private road. So what we're going to be doing now on the easement, lot one will require an easement over lot two. And then lot two will require an easement over lot three. And lot three remains the same and nothing changes.
All right, so lot three always had the private road as part of
That's
lot
correct.
three.
Yeah.
Dave, you have a question?
Yeah, so that's why lot one requires an easement over lot three, because just that small portion of the road that.
That's correct, over lot two, yes. So
Lot-
you can see the highlighted green location.
Oh, I see. That's
Yeah.
so lot two.
So lot one needs an easement over two
That's
because
correct.
the line for two was changed.
Yes, that's correct.
So it's going over.
Why are we doing that?
So the lot, so if you go down to the bottom, you can see the enlargement on the main map. That's a close up of how the easement works. So originally lot 3, that always had to have an easement over lot 2 because it was done in a weird way, which I personally wouldn't have done it if I was the original owner. So now it's only a small section because, okay, lot 1 is no longer coming off the private road. So that is coming off a weird little spot, which is lot 2. You can see the area that's highlighted.
So let me just ask you, lot 2, the boundary between lot 1 and lot 2,
Yes,
you didn't change the
there's
boundary.
no boundary changes
Okay, so
whatsoever.
this
No
was
lot line
always like
changes.
this.
It's purely easements over the other property.
This was always like this.
Yeah,
This is the lot 1.
But we're approving that though, right?
No, this was approved
Okay.
3 years ago.
yeah, so
Okay.
nothing else has
So
changed.
the easement is for lot 1 is gonna be over lot 2, but it wasn't because they're changing it now. It was always like
Changing the
that.
road.
And it enters into lot 3, or it goes.
Yes,
And
that's
the road
correct.
is lot 3.
And that private road's always been, it's
What
always.
were you
been there.
proposing to maintain that portion of the driveway to lot 1 that goes over lot 2?
So that was always part of the original road maintenance agreement, that all 3 lots would actually have to share to that section, so that's always been in place. The only thing we really changed, because lot 1's no longer coming off Rock Hill Road, that will basically be a shared maintenance agreement, which has already been articulated.
So to be clear, that portion of the orange driveway for lot 1 that goes over lot 2 is going to be a shared responsibility. Does
Yes, that's correct.
that make sense?
It was shared between 1 and 2. but
Right.
not
Yeah, so
3.
sorry, we share between
But
1 and 2,
In
and
fact,
then,
he's never ever going to use that.
That's true.
Why would he want to deal with that? It's
That's
on his
true.
property, but he's never going to use it because he's got a driveway. That driveway does not service him at all.
So we just need an easement for it.
Well, yeah, but,
Okay. So
but the easement has maintenance terms in it, and maintenance term A could be that lot 1 completely takes care of that driveway or alternative maintenance, where you could say that they share it. And what the applicant's saying is they're gonna share it, and I'm just wondering, I mean, you can draw it however you want, but if I'm owning lot 2, I'm not sure I want to be plowing the driveway.
so that's the thing, there was what the lawyer put forward, it said for the maintenance costs, it'll be 1/3 for that section. But then later on, the costs are divided,
No, no,
1/3,
I'm
and
not
then it's
talking
half
about I'm not
maintenance
talking about that
costs.
road, I'm talking about the orange driveway.
Uh,
There's a portion of the orange driveway, the new driveway you're proposing,
yes,
that is services lot 1, but that is on lot 2. That's why lot 1 certainly needs an easement.
yes,
What I'm
correct.
wondering is, for the terms of the maintenance of that orange, the portion of that orange driveway that's on lot 2, why would lot 2 ever want to pay for that?
Because it said 1/3 maintenance, and then the half of the maintenance costs will share between the portion containing lot 2 easement.
Yeah, but there's no reason why, it should just be the responsibility of lot 1.
I mean,
It's the private driveway, the shared driveway is
well,
different.
let me be clear, it's not really the town or the board's concern as to how maintenance agreements are figured up. Although we'd like to see it done fairly in terms of who pay percentages, but in this case, it's almost like it's a very, very discrete issue, so I'm just observing that lot 2 has no stake in that portion of the road.
Well, lot 2 did because it needed an easement over lot 3.
but that has to do with the road.
That's because we're changing the driveway location.
Okay, but what we're talking specifically about is the small portion of lot 1's driveway coming off of
Yes,
lot 3,
yes,
the shared driveway.
yeah,
There's a portion, an orange portion of lot 1's driveway that's going over lot 2.
yes,
So what our attorney is saying, and totally up to you,
yeah.
why would lot 2 pay anything for the maintenance of that small portion since they're not using it? The only
Well-
person using it is lot 1.
And lot 1 will be my house, so I personally feel that it's fair, and that's what
Okay.
I'm doing. I own all 3 lots.
So the way
it's-
that the way that it was written was the way you presented it.
That's correct, and I actually did this by legal
Okay.
advice as well, and they recommended.
So we'll take a look at,
Yeah, okay.
I have that. Did you give me? the
Yeah, I've got your
information?
guilt, the
Okay.
copy.
So I'll give it to our attorney.
I will just say that the reason why the board is interested in road maintenance agreements, in easements, is to avoid any future conflicts. so obviously, the most important thing is that it's recorded and affects all, the benefits all the lots and the maintenance is clearly laid out in the lots. So, and it could be anything, especially on a driveway that's shared.
Yeah.
I'm just observing that this driveway, this portion of the driveway that we're talking about is not shared physically. I mean, it's not shared in terms of use. It happens to be on the neighbor's lot. So if I were drafting it to, again, with the idea of conflict avoidance and what future potential conflict avoidance, I would have lot one just take care of that entire orange driveway, whether it's on his parcel, you know, legal for, but on lot two. If you want to set up a situation where lot two's got to contribute to that for whatever reason, I mean, you can do it as long as it's in black and white and recorded. I don't really care. It just seems like a bad
And
idea.
Which it has, because they're only, that small section is the only part that all three people are responsible. The remainder of the private driveway is lot three, so it is only a very small portion of the actual.
Is the
driveway.
concept of the entire, that all these driveways, to the extent that, at least to the extent that they're shared, would be contracted out on a regular basis and that the money's divvied up?
Yes, we'd have a homeowners association.
I guess it doesn't matter.
So just the thing is, it's only that small portion that's highlighted that will actually be shared costs. The rest of the driveway, which is predominantly lot three, they will be responsible for the cost of that. So
Lot three is entirely responsible.
for all the rest of the driveway. So have a look through the road maintenance
Okay.
agreement.
I'll take a look at it.
Yeah. And that's why I'm doing everything before anything's given up on the owner of all three lots.
Oh, everything's done.
I have a question, and I don't know if it has to do with lot three.
Yep.
Is the road in, because the driveway is going through a federal wetland and buffer area. Did the board know that when this was approved, or is this a change?
Which road is?
If you look at lot three. The Wood Road is going through the 100-foot buffer of the federal wetlands.
Federal wetlands don't have a 100-foot buffer.
It's on the map, I'm just, you know.
So that we haven't, that's everything's been approved
Okay.
previously, and it's an existing private road, but yeah, there is no wetlands that goes over there, because that's an existing
They
road.
showed the buffer, the roads in the buffer, that to me is a red flag for me. That's my.
Okay.
It was all approved, didn't it?
Yeah.
Anybody for Gloria?
Why, the triangle was, why it cannot be just acquired by lot one?
Because wouldn't that require, I don't want to do a lot line adjustment or any variances or anything like that. So as I said, unfortunately, I inherited this. I personally, if I started from the get-go, I would have done lot three owns the whole private driveway. I would have done it very differently. So I'm trying to.
Another question I have, on a previous application, I found that engineering review required specification of driveway grades. So in this case, maybe put some kind of notes on the drawing that it's 15 degrees based on your description.
Yeah, everything will remain the same that was previously approved.
But then previously, the driveways were steeper. And our engineering consultant suggested to put notes for each. Actually, there was a drawing showing different grades on the driveway. And then he added there needs to be some kind of note. So in this case, it's 15 degrees, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
Put that note on the plan, on the drawing somewhere, specifying the gradient of the driveway. I can send you an email that.
Yeah, I was talking to the attorney. So did you guys agree that that's necessary?
I would have to check once again. I'm sorry you're stuck with me because I'm not the engineer.
I'm saying I sent an email with a quotation from engineering review, where he points out that driveway gradient should be on a drawing somewhere. In the previous.
The new one? The new driveway grading? The old one
In
had,
old one, yeah.
the old one had the driveway grading. Then you sent another note that said, forget about the first note.
No, it was not about gradient, it was.
Okay, so what do you?
Yeah, no, it was. He put a gradient, he did specify gradient when I said forget about that in his writing. But it's not on the drawing. That's what I.
Are you asking him to do it?
Right, put it on the drawing.
So are you certain that the grading is significantly different from what it was originally?
It's better.
So why would,
Okay,
because you seem to.
usually we ask for grading,
when it's not, okay.
right? So, no. I don't see a need for it. Whoever's building it,
It's essentially.
they're gonna look at the map, they're gonna say, well. I'm moving it over here according to the new map, and it's a lot flatter, so it's gonna be a lot easier. So I don't see the need to put them through that added expense of doing another driveway cut. Or another drawing of a driveway cut.
I'm not taking my driveway, it's a note. Just a note.
What's the note gonna say?
Is the driveway grading is 15%.
I think that it does actually say that you gotta have to double check though.
Okay.
Yeah, because all these notes are identical. I hear what you're saying, but they were identical and we're trying to improve it. We're not gonna be on.
Okay, any other comments? Hang on a second, I'm asking, our attorney is discussing whether we have to go through seeker for this.
We're trying to figure out which crack this falls through. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's unlisted. I think
Yeah, we
we're
think-
agreeing it's probably unlisted under
This is
C.
a unique thing, it's probably enlisted. To go through it.
So it's unlisted, do we have to go through determination of significance as well?
Yes, and if it's subject to secret, you have to do it.
Have to do the whole thing, okay.
We declare legal and see.
Okay, so I don't have to recuse anybody.
He changes the lot line, he's gonna refile the county clerk.
But he's not
Trying to avoid that,
changing the
right?
lot line, so
Because
he's still.
He's changing the conditions of the subdivision approval. So don't, I mean, it's pretty rare you do that without changing the lot
You can't.
lines, but
You can't change anything on a subdivision map
Without,
without approval.
I think so for approval.
Well, you're changing where the driveways are.
I'm only here for an amendment, not a change to the actual subdivision.
Right,
For the
because you'd have to
driveway.
refile, well, like.
So Dave-
If you change anything on, I'm looking at accounts, if you change anything on a subdivision plan. You have to get the planning board approval,
and that's what we're doing.
That's what he.
Yeah.
so you have to refile too?
What do you mean refile? You mean
These
refile?
It's flat.
The lots are filed with the county clerk, that's,
Yeah.
they've already
Sure.
got numbers,
Sure.
but that's a filed plat, you can't change. The clerk's not supposed to accept the map unless the planning board's approval.
You know what, I don't really.
I don't know.
I'm not sure I care about that, you might want to, but for our purposes, what he's doing is changing the conditions of the subdivision approval without changing the actual subdivision itself, the changed condition, so to speak. Now, it's not a condition in words, it's a visual condition of the location of the driveway. And so this kind of falls through the cracks because people don't usually anticipate this when the DEC wrote up the type 2 regulations, so it doesn't really hit a type 2 type 2 criterion, so it's probably unlisted, which means it's a secret. Probably, if DEC had been more clairvoyant, they probably would have included this, but they weren't, they didn't, and so here we are, so just go through.
All right, so let's go through to its logical conclusion. We go through seeker, we do what we did for the previous project.
Same thing.
He has to submit a new map to me, and that new map has to be submitted to the,
Well, that's for
You
him
have to sign it,
After you sign it,
you have to sign
had to
it.
sign it, and he's supposed to submit it.
because I don't think any title company's ever gonna care about it, but that's for.
Okay.
I think that's sort of the lawyer and survey and the county clerk. You know, be a good idea, certainly, but
Well, I'm gonna sign it and see which, the new official map that the town is holding, I would want to have a file in the county clerk to affect. Okay, so let's go back to seeker. Sure.
Do any permits have to be resubmitted?
No. So it's actually the only thing we would have to do, but that's a separate, that's nothing to do with the
then
driveway.
did you say perks?
The septic, yeah, the septic plans, we would actually have to get that. We will, but that's like.
So do we have to have, so
Is there an amended board of health approval required for the septic?
he's saying.
Yes, but not for the, not for the planning board notes, so it would have to go through the board of health.
Oh, I,
So we have approval, but we'd still double check with them to see if we are, because I have to figure out, we're only moving them slightly.
Do we have to be lead
We
agency?
got this new information, Lena got it.
you gotta circulate it. The board of health, it's gotta get approval for the new, for the.
Could we do an uncoordinated
Maybe,
review?
I have to check.
Yes, you can.
Do an uncoordinated review.
And then you
Yeah.
give it leave it to the health department to decide if they want to do
We
it.
can always find a way.
If we don't hear from them.
That's okay. Health department, they want to do it in secret.
Okay, so
If you do an uncoordinated.
No, we
yeah.
need to.
So entertain a motion to declare ourselves a lead agency.
I'll make the motion.
A second.
David made the motion. Peter seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? 7-0 for that.
May I suggest that since you just read the part two, we probably, I'm sure the board members have it very clearly in their mind what those criteria were, and we can probably judge whether there's any significant adverse environmental effects.
Right, I will do that rather than read through them all. I'm looking for a motion that this would be unlisted, uncoordinated.
I'll make the motion.
Jennifer makes the motion and it's unlisted, uncoordinated. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Vote was 7-0. And for the part two, determination of significance, since everybody has a great memory, we had 11 items that we went through.
Does anybody, just ask if anybody has any concerns about significant adverse environmental impacts based on the broad statement that Rick did before, and that you will know what any other impact you can think of.
No.
If not, somebody make a motion.
Anybody? No, okay. So I'm going to declare this to be a negative
Sure,
declaration.
you gotta make a motion.
Entertain a motion for a negative declaration. Who wants to make the motion? Zorian makes the motion for it to be a neg deck. Second, Hans.
Beautiful.
And this has to be a voice, individual vote, so go around the table. Peter,
Aye.
Hans,
Aye.
Marina, aye, Jennifer. There's an aye, Zorian's an aye,
Aye.
Dave's an aye, and I'm an aye. So everybody voted yes on that, so that's 7-0. And that takes care of the negative declaration. And now for the amended subdivision.
We
I'll let-
have to hear it. With the waiver.
We would have to consider. You
You
did give me a wa-
I actually submitted a letter.
There is a waiver in the file for
There is?
to waive the public hearing. There is one in the file. You did deliver.
Yeah, I sent you a letter.
I would suggest that we waive it, and there is a letter in the file. Since the only thing changing is the position of the driveways and the RMA and the easements. Anybody have any questions about or any objections to that? So I'll entertain a motion. Jennifer makes a motion to waive the public hearing based upon the fact that this is simply an adjustment to the positioning of the driveways which affected the RMAs.
Second, motion.
We seconded, David seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? It passed 7-0. Anything else? So what I need from you, Dave, will do redo a decision, an amended decision.
Yeah.
When I have that ready for you, I will sign it.
Okay.
And then I need new maps that I'll sign, and I do want you to refile it at the county.
Great.
All right, so make sure we have the right map up there.
And with the road maintenance agreement, that's fine as
The
is.
road maintenance agreement I'm giving to our attorney.
Yep.
How much did you give me in escrow originally?
350.
It's probably gonna go to 750. So you need to bring in another, once you bring in another 500. Whatever we don't use, you get back. So we need to have our attorney look at the maintenance agreement. And we need to have Dave do the decision for you. All right, so you know where to find our secretary. You can bring in $500.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And Dave, would you be able to have a decision by the next meeting?
I mean, 2 weeks, 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah. Bill. We're back again. Okay, this is a new project. Amy and Alex Lewis. Continue pile of maps. Bill, why don't you tell us about it?
Well, this is on Lower Whitfield Road. This is just over 9 acres. This is an AR3 zone, so it's 3-acre zoning. There's an existing house, driveway and such towards the front of the lot. We actually were in the lot line revision in 2023 with an adjacent property, due to the fact that we have been occupying a good portion of the neighboring property. So they acquired some land from the neighbor to incorporate the landscape using there. And now they're looking to do a 3-lot subdivision here. So it would be basically the lot towards the front that has the existing building on it and everything, would have all the road frontage. And then the 2 lots towards the rear of it would have a shared common driveway coming back with easement, road maintenance agreement, and everything there. This is just initial presentation here. Got a ways to go on this as far as the details.
Does anybody have any immediate reactions to it? I have a couple. Sonia?
Yeah, lot one. How do you know that that land is doesn't exceed 20% of total size of the lot?
I don't know for sure on that. We have not had the wetland delineated. Obviously, we're gonna have to do that. And that's a possibility there. If that happens. There's not much. I've already got kind of an odd configuration here to try and get these acreages to work. I would say if the case is probably not gonna get 3 lots at that point. This is optimistic here, the 3. So.
And second, I have probably can deal, I don't know, with the court condition. This is 100% farmland. So they cannot satisfy the 40% condition because it's 100%.
So you're saying this is 100% prime farmland?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll have to deal with that like we dealt with it with the other project. Bill, is this all wooded?
Yes.
Yes. Except for well, even the wetland is kind of weird.
Some wood is defined as a 1% forest.
So Bill, just like we had to do with Nolan,
Mhm.
I suspect that when you stake the wetlands, they're gonna be far more encompassing than what you have here on the map from the from whatever map you used. So you need to have somebody get out there and actually stake them based upon soil types. Well, you know what has to be done, soil types, plants, the whole 9 yards. Julian's correct, if this is prime land, prime farmland, we've got the same problem. With each lot has to be, can't be any more than 40% prime farmland. If the whole property is 100%, and Dave will confirm that when he goes through it.
Whole neighborhood is,
Yeah, so what?
every lot around them is 100%.
When I did the parcel view, the same thing. So you're gonna have to come back, Bill, because of the code, and come back with something unique like we did with Nolan.
Yeah.
I have a question too about the slopes. You're gonna need to do a heat map here.
Mhm.
Is that shared driveway more than 500 feet?
Yeah.
Because if it is,
Yeah.
you can't have a shared driveway more than, oh wait,
Here's your scale. This
This is 240.
it's flag, I'm sorry, flag driveway, never mind.
240 feet.
Okay, you worked the hook there, but you had 3 major problems. I don't think that's the extent of the wetlands. From 1 or 2 of the maps that I used, and Dave will sort that out. So we actually need it staked out in the field.
Excuse me, with the wetlands, does this, with the new DEC guidelines, does this need to be screened by the DEC?
I think so too.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just.
and we're not gonna be the agency to do that. The applicant is gonna do that.
I'm not saying us,
No,
but
but
that's the process I think that we need
I'm
to
glad to
go.
mention that it comes up in another project
Correct.
later in the evening.
Yeah, that wetland's about an acre, right?
It's federal, but if it's a vernal pool and et cetera, so, you know.
So Bill, this is gonna have to go to the DEC on the new wetlands provisions for them to evaluate. So you got a stake, presumably stake them, and then they're gonna have to weigh in on what it is you state and how we're gonna handle it. You got the whole property is prime farmland. There are some steep slopes, it looks like, on lot extremely small. I don't know if they're extremely, but
These are 2-foot contours.
You know,
so you need to give us a heat map like you've done before, so we can determine that. So I think, and you and I did have this discussion briefly, when you were getting on the agenda. Pushing 3. Maybe 2, but not the way you have them laid out. Maybe not. So what I'm gonna do, Bill, is, there's a lot of work, as you said, that has to be done. I would start with the wetlands, the heat map. Dave, we're gonna have you do a full workup on this. Bill, this isn't gonna get on the agenda until May,
Yes.
May 28th, because we're skipping the first meeting.
Yep.
So it won't be till May 28th, so it gives everybody a chance to do some homework on this and get us new maps and get a whole debrief from Dave Church. I'm gonna set escrow. We'll start with 750, and I want to vote on that. We think we're missing that. We're supposed to vote on that as a board. We'll start with 750, Bill, and I guess the more complex some of this gets. I don't know whether that changes or not, but let's start at 750. So
I'll make a motion.
Peter made the motion for 750, second, Hans, all in favor?
Aye.
And so we've got everybody voting for that.
I have a question,
Go ahead, Peter.
which is just, and this showed up in a parcel viewer for me, is watershed NHD Huck 10. I don't know what that means, but it's a purple line, goes right through.
Yes, it was some kind of.
I don't know what that means.
Is it on the map, Peter, or you
It's
saw
on
it
the parcel
It's on
viewer.
the parcel viewer?
Yeah, if you click watershed,
Some kind of stream zone, basically. On another view.
it's a national hydrography data set. I just don't know enough about what that means.
So it is the parcel viewer.
On the parcel viewer, if you watershed NHD, there's a diagonal purple line that goes through the back third of the property.
Bill, could you look into
I
that?
see what you're saying.
I don't know what that is.
Federal database on water, surface waters. I guess it implies that there's. Could be surface flooding in the shaded area.
And the flooding is just pooling of water, or there's no stream
It's a
bed?
general. Not to dwell on this stuff. This is it's generalized data that's mapped at a much coarser scale. It's been plopped on this.
Okay.
So. The basic rule of cartography is it's only as accurate as the least accurate data set involved. So that's for planning purposes only, but it does trigger the notion that in that area it could be wet.
Yeah. More reason to contact the DEC.
Correct.
Bill, keep us, send us copies of whatever you're sending, if you're sending a letter, or they're asking you to fill out forms or whatever. Make sure this board gets copies of everything. I'm not gonna ask Greg Bolner to do anything, our engineer, until we get much further along.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's necessary or not to review anything that you generate. Anybody else? All right, so Bill, sorry,
I
Helena?
said I already made the comment as far as with the wetlands.
Yeah.
And following that procedure.
I want to make a comment, I'm sorry, going forward. You used in property address on your title block. You comply with the code
Oh,
on the final plans.
on the final plans. I have they are for you by preliminary.
Right, I know.
And Bill, they haven't done any work on this property yet, right?
What's that?
They haven't done any work on this property yet.
No, there is
No.
existing. There is existing.
Existing house, but there's a driveway.
Driveway that just got put in.
Yeah, there's a driveway to the, I guess it'd be to the west of that. Because I drove up that road the other day.
Oh, that might be on the property adjacent to it.
Yeah. It was so,
Yeah,
I couldn't quite tell.
The property that was part of a lot line change
no, on the other side.
on the other side.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay, Bill, you got your work cut out for you.
All right, thank you.
Hey,
Alexandra Nagoita? Terry, is that yours? Okay, you have.
It's a DRBC or NCRBC.
Maps?
For the Delaware basis on the Susquehanna. Does that keep it different, right?
Terry, you gave us maps for this one, didn't you?
Yes.
Sure did.
Okay, I think this is a time to take a 5-minute break. They gotta be in there.
Yeah.
Shut down.
You can
Stand
continue this.
up.
Be comfortable. We're gonna take a 5 or
And
10
put your
minute break.
feet up
Let me
and
go
get
look for those maps. I'm sure they're there. Let's go look for them. And we have maps. They're here, Terry. No. Yeah, jump to that side. Yeah, grab those, these two.
You didn't even fold them?
Every time I fold them, it loses.
I wallpaper my walls. Well, this time it was all rolled up. What's that? We're still on break, so if we get a chance to fold it, and make it easy.
Sorry.
Hold it.
I'm gonna show you something. The map holding strip.
Oh, let's see.
I used to sort them as well. Why that?
Something I told them watch. Actually, the pages, the corners, this way.
Yeah, I was on that over.
Pretty. No, I'm gonna show you.
Okay.
Right nicely in folder. If you ever have to attach this, you go to a binder, take this corner right here.
Clearly, he hasn't done any work.
That's what I was building up from, I'm telling you. He does it for rock and stuff.
No, so you can, when you're in the field, you can open it up. It's just-
This is a folder, a file.
Thank you.
You're welcome. 5 minutes up?
No, just wait for Jerry, she'll be good.
John. Starting out. Serious.
Don't go back into session. So we're not trying to call it.
Oh, yeah. I can highly recommend it.
Extension is for apartments?
Yeah, we're doing, first phase. Yes.
We're just waiting for the secretary to come back to.
And not a data science. But much improved. And then.
Six cottages.
Combination of apartments. So the land is. So many. But it's.
Not too much.
It's not, it's like
Okay, is that thing back on? You tell them when it's on.
We are on.
Okay, Terry. Go ahead.
All right, Ms. Negotia wants to subdivide her 8.2 acres of land into 2 lots. There's existing houses, wells, and septics on each lot. Lot number 1, she'd like to keep 5.25 acres, and lot 2 would be 3.04. It's in R2 zoning, 2-acre zoning. South of DeWitt Road.
Okay, so nothing's changing,
Nothing's changing.
no buildings are changing. Driveway's not changing. So it seems to me the only, well, of course, the board may have other comments, but all we're gonna need is a shared driveway agreement.
Which I believe she submitted.
She submitted to me, and I'm gonna give you a format that we prefer,
That would be
and I'll
perfect.
send it to you tomorrow. All right, so rather, or I might even have a copy.
Is it the old one that had been being used?
No,
Okay, but I had that and I wasn't sure what the board would need, so.
it's one that our attorney came up with.
Okay.
All right, so if I have a moment, I'll look for it when you're finished
You
here.
can
and I'll give it
just
to you.
email it to me.
I'll email it to you. Does the board have any comments on this?
So there's no construction?
Nothing, it's all, everything's been done, and I believe, zoning has already been out there and confirmed that there's no zoning violations, and everything was just, there's all COs on everything is as it should be.
There's an interesting thing I learned this week, and I want to ask you about it, which is that one side of that road, on the opposite side, all the properties have covenants on it. They're not subdivided, but it doesn't seem like the other side of the road was.
The subdivision was done in different sections, so it depends on which section that was,
Yeah, I think all the stream side ones were all.
right,
No.
there was nothing
No
on this side.
subdivisions, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Or this
because
section.
I looked at the deed and but it was just,
Yeah.
I thought that was curious. So,
You have an interesting life. You look at, you read these.
well, he submitted it.
I hope you can read the notes too.
I do, yeah. I did, I read the whole thing, but it's kind of crazy stuff.
Anybody else have comments on Alina? On this side? No, no, okay.
It seems incredibly straightforward.
And I can't believe that.
Scary.
I hardly comment.
What do we
I
do?
just looked at the research, there's no issue there.
All right, so Terry, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set, just to review the RMA, I'm just gonna set $350 escrow. That should be enough. Let me make it 500. That way I don't have to come back to you.
I make a motion. to-
Peter's making the motion for 500.
I'm writing it
escrow.
down. I
Second.
second it.
Helena seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we'll do that. And, I mean, everything is here.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to make a pitch for waiving the public hearing. You gotta get us something in writing. You know, between now and the next meeting, that's up to you. Dave?
Or you set the hearing now.
Yeah, but we can set the hearing, because I don't think there's gonna be any issues at the public hearing, so,
We can do
yeah,
that.
let's just do that.
I prefer not to do it for the end of the month.
No, do it for.
I'll do it for the May 28th.
Yes, because,
Okay,
she's out of town right now,
okay,
and I think she's out of town for at least another week.
all right, so
So
what
to
do
get
we,
the escrow in and to get the RMA done is gonna take us a little bit.
It's
So
take a little
that
bit
would be
of
fine.
okay, so why don't we do that? I'll make a motion that we set the public hearing for this for May 28th, which is our next official meeting. Is the only official meeting for the month of May.
I'll second that.
Peter seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thanks. So Robin, we have to, I can show you how to get out the public hearing notice to the newspaper, so we'll do that. And Terry, I'll send you the RNA. If you have any questions about it, or you can give our attorney a call. But it's pretty straightforward. And it covers almost every situation, so it may not have to use the whole thing. I'm not sure. All right, so. That's that. Hang on a second. We'll just go ahead and do, declare lead agency. And the type.
What else? With this little thing?
Yeah. You want to research whether it's a type two?
The 2-lot subdivision.
So it's an unlisted. Yeah, okay. All right, let's do the lead agency also.
No?
No,
So I'm gonna propose that we declare lead agency. I'll make that motion.
You make that motion?
I'll make the motion. Want to second it? So on the Goita, how do you pronounce it?
I'm not sure.
The Goita.
And then.
I made the motion, Jennifer made the second. All in favor of lead agency?
Aye.
Aye, 7-0. It's unlisted, uncoordinated. I'll entertain a motion for that. Hans made the motion.
Second.
Peter seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And then we'll do the determination of significance when we get to the public hearing. Even though we'll do it then. All right, the next one on the agenda is the Green Project. If you remember, this is a while ago. This was the project with the revocable truss. And I'll let Terry start. Tell us what you've done, tell us what you're expecting from us tonight.
Well, as stated at the previous meeting, this land's been in the family for 129 years. It's only being divided because of the will of Mrs. Green, who passed away, and it's divided into 3 equal parcels. And have been put through the surrogate's court, and that's where we are. So we designed a 3 equal lots of the 42.58 acres. Here for approval of those lots, whether or not there's no development plan, but we have been asked to show where development could happen.
Okay, so if you remember last time, it is a subdivision. And the applicant who was here with us last time, the owner, applicant or soon to be owner. Wanted us to waive, I'll just say just about everything. We said, no, you've got to tell us this exactly what it is that you want waived. So the applicant wrote us a letter, John Green,
Yeah, so let me just expand on that, okay?
go ahead.
He was under the impression that he had to submit a waiver at the time of application, not before the preliminary review. Okay, the town, or your process here said that waivers need to be submitted with the preliminary submission. So he was ahead of the game, trying to. He was told that this was gonna be a simple process, so he tried to make it as simple as possible. So we kind of jumped the gun on all of that. We should have sat and we should have discussed what the board needs, what the board's looking at, and we should have gotten an idea so we could get to a preliminary stage. And we just jumped right to waivers. Okay, so I would like us to sit down and discuss this project as we should. You know, we're here for our second meeting. We haven't, I don't even know if we're here for sketch plan approval. I don't know where we are at our second. So if we can just ignore his statement about endless waivers and just look at this project, what you asked us to do, what we provided on the map, and move forward from there. That's what I'd like to get accomplished tonight.
So what you're telling me is, forget it, I just heard you say, forget what he said.
Yeah,
And we're gonna-
he tried submitting another waiver on Dave Church's suggestion from last month. And I guess that still isn't good enough, okay? So I would like to hear what the board is requiring us, because if we're not at a preliminary stage, we really don't have to submit waivers yet. We can submit waivers for the preliminary review, because that's how your procedures are stated. So I'd like to try to follow those procedures so I can get an understanding of where I have to move forward to get this project through to the board.
So you've given us a sketch plan. And beginning to be in accordance with our subdivision, our minor subdivision rules, right?
Well, that's a question that I had, because, you know, reading the definitions of subdivision, that's, here. It said, you know, the definition of subdivision is division of any parts of land into two or more lot sites or other divisions of land for the purpose, whether immediate or future, of transfer of ownership or building development. We're not, this applicant isn't planning building development. He's just planning the transfer of the parcel. So my question is, are we held to that building development?
I guess I'm gonna turn to my attorney.
Because there's that word
If
for
we're,
and
okay, if we're ignoring what the applicant originally came in and said he wanted waivers for everything, we said, well, tell us what you want waived. And we didn't go anywhere, if you remember last time, got nowhere, right? He did send in a waiver request, which actually wasn't necessary. He sent in a waiver to waive the requirement around 40% of the property, no more than 40% of the property to be prime farmland, and only 30% of one of the lots is prime farmland.
it's not even 30.
So he didn't even need a waiver for that. So, but he sent one, so it's under 30%. Is what you're indicating. The other provisions of the minor subdivision, if you go through each one of them, 125-12, 125-13. You've met many of them, but there are some that are still not met. The ones that you've met is you've indicated on each one of the plots or each one of the lots where the houses are, where the proposed septic is, and presumably it'd be easy enough to have a development circle around each one of those. You've done the slopes that we asked for. You have the line on the map for the 100-foot buffer. Yeah, you have that. And there are some things that are missing still. Under the subdivision code, our subdivision code, and I'm jumping around a little bit, but for example, 125-13D. It requires that you give us permits or documents showing that the septics will work from the Ulster County Department of Health.
Or a letter from a licensed engineer stating that the sites are suitable.
So we need that. Or are you asking for a
Well,
waiver for that?
I'm not asking for a waiver for that. What I'm asking is that if we are doing it for just the division of the property to be sold as property and not as a development, are we required to do that? Because that's at the discretion of the board.
So you're asking,
Because
go
the
ahead.
the definition of subdivision
Yeah.
says for the transfer of ownership or building development.
So Terry's
That's
making
underneath
a,
the definitions of
I think
subdivision.
you're making a case that they've submitted a sketch.
Right.
He wants to know what he's supposed to do next.
Right, and,
In the full
and,
submission, there is this split purpose for a subdivision. I haven't contemplated this and I defer to the lawyer, but I don't see the procedures as distinguishing between the two purposes. So regardless, regardless of
the
how you're
purpose.
gonna, this is just off the top of my head,
Right.
look, in my emerging familiarity with this, including the new provisions. While the purpose, while the definition and purpose of subdividing is got two purposes, the procedures don't distinguish between the purposes.
And so whether it's, so what you're saying is whether it's for the purposes of building or it's the purposes of just transferring property, I don't have the exact words, but that's the sense. The procedures that follow from that definition of subdivision are the same.
Correct. However, important footnote, planning board's authorized to waive anything in the subdivision
Right.
regulations,
Right, we know that, right?
upon a proper waiver request.
Okay. So whether you're doing it for transfer purposes with no building, or you're doing it for building purposes, all the requirements were not really are required.
right, so then my question is,
Yeah,
okay, is that if that's the case, I can ask for a waiver from septic designs and showing buildings that aren't gonna be built with this applicant, because this application isn't for development, it's for the division and transfer of property.
so as I told you last time, or this board told you last time, you can ask for a waiver for everything. The only waiver that I see here is one that you didn't even need from John. So if,
I know, but I'm trying to ask specific questions, Rick, okay? So my question is, there's this whole standard of what a waiver has to be, okay? We have to cite what section it is, and then we have to cite the alternative and a remedy for it.
Right.
Okay, there isn't a remedy in the code for me to say that because it's only land transfer.
so how about you do this without me writing it for you? You know what all the provisions are? In 125-13C, there's like seven
Why
provisions.
even 13? That's major subdivision.
This is minor.
This is a minor subdivision.
Okay, for the minor subdivision.
125-12.
You've got, it's 125-12. You've got all of those
And
provisions.
13.
If you want to waive each one of those, I need a letter from you or from John that says, in the following section, I want all of these things waived. I'm not doing it verbally. When it comes to the why and what the alternative is, I think it would be sufficient and obvious to simply say, because we're not building, we're simply transferring the property, and there is no alternative. That's all.
And if that's gonna be acceptable to the board, we will pursue that. I just don't want to delay this project any farther. Okay, because.
I thought that's what we came to last time, but forget it
No,
last
that
time.
wasn't what we did last time.
Okay.
Last time I was told these have to be shown as buildable lots and I had to do all this work.
Well, the fear is that, if you, even though they're not planning on building, if they sell them, then somebody else comes along and plans on building. Then we might paint ourselves in a corner. By not
But you
making
have,
sure that
the
there's
town
sufficient
has
water
the
and such.
provisions to protect itself, because before a lot can be built on, you have to go get a building permit, which requires you to go get Ulster County Board of Health approval. Which then requires you to submit all those documents to help it. But the point is that this application isn't for that.
No,
The
no, no, no,
application-
no. You misunderstood what the planner said. We'll try it again. And I explained some of this to you the last time. The definition, you are reading the definition of subdivision the opposite of the way it's intended. It's intended the way the planner suggested. The concept of a subdivision takes into account two different types of purposes and loads both of them into this process. The purpose of, that we're gonna build on it, or we're gonna sell it, we're gonna sell it to other people. And the reason why that happens is, and as I explained last time, if you sell it to other people, the generalized presumption is we're gonna build on it. And so the whole thing gets loaded into the subdivision process. And it has to happen now, because once you subdivide and build on it, the board loses its ability to regulate much of the problems that can come with the subdivision. For example, the board might have decided that this 3-lot subdivision, in terms of, I understand the inheritance issue, but from an environmental issue, the board might have decided that that's worth 2 lots instead of 3. We do that all the time. And so this is the stage at which that has to happen. So it's not like you're reading the subdivision as, well, there's 2 different purposes, and mine is not the development, therefore I shouldn't have to comply with all of these development rules. But that's not what it says, and that's not what it means. The presumption is more than that. The legal requirement is that it is going to comply with those rules. And if you want to get an exemption from them or a waiver from them, you have to explain why, not in terms of we don't plan to subdivide now.
I fully understand the reason and how, and the waivers, okay? I'm just trying to understand this new process of moving through that, okay? And I got a whole different take from what Dave said on that, because what I heard Dave say, the planner say, was that there's these 2 things there, and it was only written one way, and it doesn't address the other way. That was what I heard.
I don't know.
I'm not
I didn't
sure.
understand it. I can tell you what he said. I can tell you what he meant because it's.
He's right here, we can listen to what he meant.
There are 2 different, as you pointed out, there are 2 different categories that fall into the concept of subdivision. Once you understand that, the code is written for subdivisions without differentiating between those 2 categories. So once you fall into either hopper, is this what you meant? You get put through the same process, because the presumption is that once you subdivide, it's going to get developed. What I suggested the last time was that if you don't want that to happen, you can come to us with a proposal for not developing the property, which is an affirmative step, which would, I don't mean to speak for the board, but that might be the sort of thing that the board would look at and say, yeah, now we can move quickly on it. You're going to put it into a forestry program, you're going to conserve it, you're going to put an easement on it, whatever. We can start waiving these things wholesale, which is what you're looking for. If you're still,
That is not what I'm looking for. So please don't put that in those words in my mouth.
Okay.
So can we go through then, what I'm missing on the map? If I was to pursue this as a development? So this way I can.
What you're missing on the map is what's in the code.
Rick, I thought I had everything on there, so I'm not sure what I'm missing. That's what I'm.
Well, where are
I'm
the
here-
septic,
I'm here for
where are the
board to
septic
tell me
permits?
what we need.
Where are the septic permits?
If you have to get them, we will get them before the preliminary meeting,
Okay,
okay?
We need-
What else do I need?
You want me to do it?
yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's, code requires type of water supply. You've indicated wells. Oh, you got a little circle on there where the well is gonna be, right?
Yeah, proposed well.
I don't know if previously what the planning board has as a precedent decided what documenting the type of water supply means. If a circle on a map is good enough,
Yes,
okay,
with a 100-foot, with the 100-foot line going around.
Septic.
okay, so you'll have to put that on. Type of sewer system, the code says. It's shown septic and septic reserve area on there.
Yes. That's what it says.
So he's indicated where they could be on a map.
Okay, and we normally, even for a minor, we normally ask for.
Well, there's a different provision for the documentation.
Okay.
This is just the
Okay,
125.13B6. You're supposed to indicate type of sewer system.
This is a major or minor subdivision.
It's a minor.
Why 13?
13 is the final application for a minor.
Major.
No,
Oh,
125
so
dash
125.13.
I'm still reading the code is, I'm sorry, I'm reading.
Yes,
the code
it's-
on E-code.
By the way, there are other problems like that.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
There's 2 125.12As, by the way. Right?
Keep going. I'll pull up the PDF.
Anyway, that's another day.
document.
That's another day. Fees, you're good. EAF you have. We need an ag data statement just because of the circumstances. Do we have that now?
we have that,
Deed and easements.
we have that.
We have to have, you're supposed to get documentation on all rights of way easements, site features and constraints with bearing on the property.
Such as what?
There's a series
Stone-
of examples,
Stone walls,
wetlands,
wetlands,
Which is all shown. Which is all shown. We have
You have all
stone
that,
walls, we have the streams, we have everything shown.
Okay.
So and I'm right now at this point, agreeing that those are shown. Soil types, you provided. Now we're in final map. Terry's question in part is, with the assumption that you're at sketch, what do you have to do to put a final map in? The final map, 125.13C, says what you require. There are a bunch of things. I'll just go into the ones that may be for discussion. Soil types, they're on there. In the most recent map. Other items from the town checklist. I went through the checklist. I think other than what's coming up now, he's covered that.
Which one is that, Dave?
It's 125.13C7.
Okay, thank you.
125.13D, I'm abbreviating, soil tests or documentation from UC Department of Health or town. They must have borrowed some language from another town.
So soil test or
documentation from the health department.
that the soil is suitable for septic.
Well, I could read it if you want me to read the actual language, but
No, what we use is give us the documentation from the Department of Health, which
And it says soils evaluation by the test pit method and or required supplemental data relating to sewage disposal shall be submitted. Relating to sewage disposal.
you don't have that.
right.
Right, that's what. We are contracted, we're waiting on the results.
Okay,
Next subsection, street encroachment permits.
this is just a highway.
I'm not sure that's how your highway superintendent does it, but
Driveway.
you would need a comment from the highway superintendent on where the driveway locations are.
Okay,
That's commonly what you're getting from the highway superintendent, right? These
Yeah.
days,
you just get a highway letter.
essentially an email,
Right.
right? Okay,
That's it?
there's a recreation fee requirement and
Only if it's five
and a
lots
public
of
hearing.
recreation fee, only if it's 5 lots or more. And then a public hearing.
So really only on this, the only thing you need on this map is a 100-foot radius. On the wells.
Well, and we gotta go
And
Soils.
but lest we not
Soils
forget,
on-
we
have
gotta
to
go
get-
back to 125.12A, capital A, which is the required conservation subdivision design, because it's got greater than 3 acres of prime farmland. That's the waiver that was put in, the revised waiver.
No, the waiver that we got from John Green was for the 40% rule.
That
Now,
was if I get this right, that was what he first submitted. The more recent one is for 125.12A. As I read it, which is I don't have to do commonly called a cluster design.
It doesn't say 30%, 12A, it says 3 acres or more,
Or
then
more.
it becomes
Correct.
conservation.
New code. New code.
so there's a waiver on file for that?
That's the waiver as I read it, that was
The one
submitted,
that I recall.
Okay,
Yeah, but what he stated incorrectly in that.
but it's incomplete. If you
In
want
that
to.
waiver, he mentioned 30%, which is not. There is
and
not
it's got nothing to
30%.
do with it, it's 3 acres.
Huh?
It's a 3 acre or more requirement.
And what he wrote was 30%.
From the same paragraph. Referring to the same paragraph, which is not correct.
All right, so let's put that aside for a minute.
Mhm.
Aside from that, Terry, you got it all?
Yeah, it seems like we have pretty much a complete applicant,
The
you know.
only thing I'm missing, well, there's a few things,
Right,
but
well, we need, I need a note.
you need the septic
Right, which I'm waiting on the engineer
Okay.
to do.
and all the other things that Dave said that you need, that you don't have yet. You need a comment from the highway. We'll send a letter out to the highway to get comment.
No,
Okay. And then on this matter of 3 acres, anything with 3 acres or more,
Well,
They
prime
need-
farmland.
or prime farmland, they need to consider conservation subdivision.
And by the way, it's all on one of the proposed plots.
it's on 2 of the proposed lots.
Oh, is it on two?
It's
Okay.
shown on the new map. And I dated acreage for both how much it's affecting both lots.
So I don't believe we have that waiver request. If you believe it's been submitted,
I know he submitted it, and Dave's saying it's not complete, which I agree with Dave, I don't think there was a good alternative source written for it, but yeah, the only thing I can come up with an alternative reason not to do that is because of the will and the circuit court saying that this has to be divided into 3 equal lots.
okay, so redo that request.
And
And that sounds like a reasonable thing that we'll consider.
that's what I wanted to discuss tonight, is to make sure that
So
that would be.
do that. The whole business with the 40%, he didn't have to send us a waiver on that. So I'm forgetting about that.
Okay, so the next question I have is, I know that we need to put a note on the map about the 100-foot offset from the creek.
Yes,
Reading through the code, I'm not exactly how that should be worded. I looked at some of the other maps that I've done prior to the new code change, and I.
so if you remind, if tomorrow you remind me, I'll give you all the map notes, I'll give you the list of the map notes, there's standard verbiage. I'll get that to you, but you gotta remind me.
Yeah.
That's it, you know, that's good with that.
And we'll get those put on.
In fact, send me an email, ask me for those.
Yep.
Ask me for the highway letter, and what else did I say I would give you, the
Limits of disturbance.
limits of disturbance. Around the
Yes.
houses.
Yeah.
You know what that is, and the RMA. No, that was,
That's the other one.
that's the other one.
That's the
You
other
don't know RMA. So if you remind me of that, I'll get you all of those, that verbiage that we put on the map. And the only other waiver that he could ask for, and I don't know if the board is of the sense of giving it to you, is a waiver from the public hearing.
No, well, public hearing's fine. I don't,
You know, this is a real subdivision,
Yeah,
so I don't see us waiving that.
I'm always curious to hear what the public has to say anyway.
Dave, anything else?
Oh, you still got the 125/12A
Which is what,
wired cluster design.
as a result of
As
3
a
acres.
result of 3 or more acres being.
So that's what I said, he said he's gonna get me a new one of those with a reason why he doesn't wanna do that. Or an alternative,
With an alternative standard,
so
whatever that
we
means.
covered that already, so we got that. Or we're getting that,
Yeah,
and the board will consider when it comes back whether or not we wanna waive it. Okay?
yeah,
Okay,
footnoting that's all brand new code language
Right.
from
right,
November,
Right.
right?
all right,
Zorian has something.
you got anything
Yeah.
else? Is that it?
Yeah. Going back to Brian Furman, on this plan, it's unclear, and you have on the table that your lot 3 has a farmland under 3 acres, 2.76. But there is some line here. Is RE soil is a prime farmland or,
RES, that's the prime, so if you.
and HSF is not?
HSF is not, no, that the soil types are listed by the North Arrow. What they are.
Very steep.
Okay, so basically what I'm saying is that RA is under 3 acres. That farmland.
For each
on
lot, yes.
Lot 3, on lot 3.
On lot 3, yes, it's
76.
2.764.
Okay, because I was confused with the second line here, I didn't, on the computer, it's hard to see RA and HSF. So it seems like meeting that 125/12A, you're under 3 acres.
Yes.
Okay. No.
But we're not under 3 acres for the whole subdivision, it's 3 acres for that one,
That,
for lot 3.
right, that's what.
Right, but the whole parcel has over 5 acres.
That applies to the parcel before it's subdivided.
No, but court says there's about the parcel, is it's not complete parcel, but for each lot,
No,
no?
any subdivision which contains 3 acres or more of connected areas of prime farmland, it's the whole lot.
Whole lot?
Right,
course.
and we have
That's the
5.369
point, is, you know-
acres of prime soil.
It would apply to their whole
5.36.
spot,
Yeah, I understand.
and it makes sense because if you're gonna add for
I
conservation,
was
subdivision,
wondering
you want it for
about
everything.
how-
The bit with the 40% only deals with the single lot.
Okay.
All right, they're
No,
different.
Right, we're talking about 3 acres, so it's a whole lot.
It's the whole lot, it's the whole plat.
Subject to subdivision.
As long as it's connected.
Right, even though we're putting a line through it, where it's located on the property, it's fully protected because of the slopes. You're not putting a driveway down there, you're not putting any buildings down, you're not doing anything down there.
Okay,
What the contours are what, two feet?
And we gave you the heat map that shows the percentages of slopes.
all right, Dave, anything else?
No,
Okay, Terry, hang on. You got any questions?
I know how to move it forward.
Sorry?
Yeah, there is a 1% forest on
And what do you want him to do with that? You want to move
just
that?
mark it on, yeah.
So this core forest. Mark it on the map.
And once again, 125.13 C3 requires address of the parcel. 125.13 C.
So on your final map, Terry, just take a look at those nits and nats having to do with addresses of the property. Your address is here, the address of the owner. The address of the property. Property owner.
There is no address of the property.
So it have the address of the revoke. It's
Yeah.
gonna be in the name of the revocable trust, right?
Right, so in 48 Minnewaska Trail, Cronuxie, New York, 12446.
Is it on the map? That's
Yeah,
what you're saying.
under owner's endorsement.
But it
Owner,
says
Anderson
parcel,
Green.
address of parcel, well, this is different location, I understand, it's not.
Maybe you,
I don't know how to follow.
do you want him to put it in the title block? Is that what you're asking for?
Okay, put it in the title block.
But what in the title block?
The address.
48 Minnewaska Trail, Cronuxie.
All we're bringing
But that's
up-
not the
that's
location of the
not-
property. That's not where we're serving.
That's where the trust is registered.
Yeah,
The property is on Wright Road, and because it's vacant, it does not have a street number.
Okay, then
No
put
address.
right, then put right road,
yeah, just put it.
We have Wright Road on the
Not
map,
in
on the
your
body of the
title.
map.
No,
title block,
title block, just put it,
just put it in there. Please.
Okay, that's a new request. I've been doing this for a year. Never heard of that.
I'm trying to help. Sue.
Yeah, I guess that's a new one to me.
I think it's always been there, just.
Okay, Terry, thank you.
Thank you.
And the earliest we get you on the agenda is May 28th.
Yeah, that should be fine.
All right, so but stay in touch if there's gonna,
Yep.
okay, if you're not gonna have the information for us in time.
Yeah, I'll check with the engineer tomorrow to find out where we are. And I mean, that's the only thing I'd be waiting on.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, last but not least. Is Ridgeview Realty, who's here for Ridgeview Realty? Jeff? Good evening. Look how we're doing. Give me a second just to get everything together.
Make you.
And who's this with you?
The civil engineer,
Your name is?
Joseph, last name Medic,
What's the last name?
Medic, MEDIC.
So who's doing the talking, Jeff, to introduce the project, you or Mr. Medic?
I can give a general overview. We've been before this board, prior to the zoning changes and, we had a brief, meeting with the board after the zoning change. We were requested by the town to submit, memorandum of law documentation as to the, use and our ability to use it for, as proposed. After review by the planning, by the building department, that it was determined that this was a valid use, and they then authorized us to move forward with the application to this board. So we've basically been before this board on this application 3 or 4 times. At this point, we have heard and tried to comply with all the requests, both of the board members, the planner, and the chair. That would include the amended application, the EAF, a narrative, agricultural data statement, and a water and sewer report from Medenbach and Eggers. In short, the proposal is this will be a house of worship during the summer months. That'll be boys' educational facility. 157 boys, 12 to 19 years old, staff with family of 15 for a total of 172 people. That maximum will be also during the winter months, Thursday to Sunday, in which there will be religious education during that period. The transportation should be minimal. Most traffic will be arriving by bus during the summer. 6 buses at the beginning of the summer, 6 buses at the end of the summer. For the staff children, there will be 2 smaller buses each day going out at around 10 a.m. For girls, and then the boys will be going out at the same time, both returning between the hours of 3 and 5. During the non-summer months, we anticipate maximum of 4 to 5 buses on a Thursday, and leaving 4 to 5 buses on a Sunday.
Okay, so let me summarize what I think I heard. By the way, where is that all written? We had an old narrative, we had a new narrative.
No, it's the only narrative the last narrative I submitted is where it's a full review.
And what you just told us is in that new
Is in that
narrative.
narrative.
Okay, and that was the one that you sent us with the big box. of each
March 19th.
119. Okay, so that's in the file. All right. So how did you get from 157 to 172? That's what staff?
Yes,
The kids and then
157, and then staff and family, we will be approximately 15 people to get us to 170.
Gets you 172. And you're saying that at the beginning of the summer, they'll be delivered 6 buses. At the end of the summer, they'll be delivered 6 buses. During the summer, they're going to be going to activities around town.
It's not, the kids that are in the camp will stay in the camp. It's the children of the staff they anticipate will be 1 bus of boys and 1 bus of girls. And there'll be young kids that aren't going to the facility, but the staff members' kids.
So is the staff members' kids included in the 157?
Yes.
And so how many buses per day will be jockeying them back and forth? Big
2 in
buses,
the morning,
little-
2 at night.
and carrying how many kids?
2 to 3 kids. Yeah, small numbers, not large numbers going on.
All right.
So is that an increase in the occupancy?
An increase
In the occupancy,
from when?
what was prior?
Prior was actually more. They had anticipated 225 to 250.
Over 200.
Oh.
Yeah,
this-
and then after there was a review by the water and sewer requirements, yes, the population.
Okay.
David, you're talking about
Previous
when it was
use.
an alcohol
Previous-
rehabilitation.
No, when it was Veritas Villas, in one of the documents that you provided, I think it said there were 70,
Yeah.
everything is designed for
70.
72 occupants.
Okay.
75, yeah.
Now it's up to 172, down from the 200 from the original proposal.
Okay.
So the 70 was Villa Veritas.
Right, 75 to 80, yeah.
So it's
With
below-
staff, it was probably closer to 100.
Below
Yeah.
that, but it's below what they were before.
All right, so Dave, let me just go through the things that I have.
Sure.
Can I ask you one more question?
Yeah, sure.
In the Ridgeview SPA memo of law, it makes reference to, what page is this? Page 4, during the summer months, approximately 250 students from yeshivas would be educated at the Ridgeview Realty property.
That's, as I said, that was reduced, that was when they did their report, they had assumed they would be able to have more kids, but they can't.
Okay,
So
so
we reduced the application.
okay, all right, because that's just a memorandum of law. I was just confused.
So if I'm not mistaken, the actual application that's in the file, the site plan application has 157. Somewhere in there, that maybe the 172 is added, but I don't recall. But the 157 I know is there.
And 157 the kids,
Yeah,
172.
and then the 172 is
together.
adults. What I'm saying, it's a part of the application, the new application that's in there. So
157 boys plus 15 staff.
there you go.
Right.
There you go. So here's what I have, Jeff, that either still needs to be done, or if you've given it to us. The stuff has come in. I know that you've been working hard with your applicant. The stuff has been coming on in dribs and drabs, which is fine. I think we have it all now. And what I'm going to do is just tell you, here's what I think we're still not missing, but still need some work either by you all or us all. And then the board can chime in or you can chime in. In no order of priority, we need to deal with noise, whether or not there's going to be noise as in not kids shouting, that sort of thing. Is there going to be amplified music?
That's in the
Amplified-
narrative also, there will be no amplification.
None whatsoever. So if we had a condition of approval that there'll be absolutely no amplification of anything. Okay.
Bring it on.
Lighting, there are a couple of things that I have our engineer looking at. You provided already, but I want to make sure you understand that we're looking at it. We still still have it done in about 2 weeks. And the lighting, you gave us a photometric study.
Yeah.
We have that. He's reviewing that. He's reviewing the water and sewer needs, which was from Menenbach and Agus. He's going to go through that. He indicated to me at first that we may have some questions. So he's going to go right to Menenbach, if that's okay with you.
Perfect.
Okay. It's done. The safety plan, I'm gonna ask, I haven't read it, I saw it, we got it last Thursday, I think it was. There's a safety plan in the file. If you remember the last time we went through this, there was considerable angst around what did a safety plan mean? And with those number of children there, we insisted that there be a safety plan. There is a map in there that shows evacuation routes, but what I asked for is we need a narrative that goes through who's in charge, where the kid's going.
Here's the document. They submitted the
There's a
document.
document.
It's actually. That literally doesn't have a narrative, but it does have a series
plan.
of bullet points, and
Right.
I would just hope somebody knows what they're doing. to figure out what
So that was based upon, we've given you the address or a website that OSHA runs, and your applicant, whomever, filled it out. So what I'm gonna ask is, Peter, can you take that safety plan?
Yep.
And circulate it with the fire, Mike, Vanek, and whoever else.
Yeah, and the chiefs.
And just document who you're circulating it with, make sure the applicant gets a copy of it, the board gets a copy of it. And Dave, can you both go through the safety plan and collaborate on a memo back to the board that says, this is great, this is not great, this is what's missing, whatever.
I'm not competent to do that.
Okay.
Uh,
I just,
I would have thought, based on my knowledge, there would have been more description. They describe who the safety officer is, but I don't know whether it's training is or anything like that. So I'm going to defer to either Peter or anybody that Peter thinks is useful to fill in the substantive. To me, this is just a seeker response question and to the safety issue, and on the substance, I don't have any confidence.
so Dave, could you go through it?
Yeah, sure.
And Peter, and I'll also.
Peter, I'll forward you when Rick and I met with the
Okay.
applicant, there was this question about what do you want in this plan?
Yep.
So Rick and I agreed to recommend to them the OSHA Emergency Action Plan
Yep.
elements that's on their website. And I'll just forward you the link, okay?
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
But if fire needs more than that, that's your prerogative.
Okay,
I'd love to know what Peter thinks. I'd love to know what anybody that.
I applaud the fact that you guys did this. at all.
Thank you.
Because there wasn't anything before.
Right.
And having been there a couple of times before when there was a fire call, it was a mess.
Right.
So I applaud you guys doing that, so.
Peter, what I'd almost like. Because I don't think anybody on their side is an expert either.
Yeah.
If you guys can literally fill in, here's all the stuff that you need to include in there, so we can have a robust discussion about it.
Okay.
For the good of the kids that are gonna be there.
Yeah.
Here's what you need to do.
Yeah.
My observation, when I read it quickly, is little things like who's in charge.
Yeah.
Meeting points. And there's
They have
probably all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
Where are they gonna meet? Where are they gonna
There's some of
congregate?
the stuff that's in here already.
Who's counting if all the kids have been evacuated? All that kind of stuff needs to be part of that. So if you guys can honcho that, that'd be great.
A couple of questions I have regarding that is do you anticipate having any handicapped students or staff on site? Because that's a different consideration for emergency, for ADA and also for just in terms of fire emergency.
I would assume that whether or not they're planning that they should be prepared in case they do have.
I think so, yeah.
So,
Yeah. So those, and then also, would there be anyone permanently on site as an emergency contact?
Yeah, there is, I believe that's in.
24/7, there'll be
They
somebody
do
there.
have people
Okay.
permanently on site.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also see, just a comment as to whose purview this goes under, but there are some spaces that egress into occupied spaces as opposed to into a hallway or corridor. So is that under your purview or is that under code enforcement?
It's probably code enforcement,
Yeah. All right.
but I'll ask that question.
Yeah.
Dave, if you wouldn't mind, I
Yeah.
didn't catch that. If you've got specific maps, could you cite the map, which map it is?
Sure, yeah.
And send a letter to the board members and to Jeff. We can get it to Jeff. That's pretty serious. That it exits into another occupied space as opposed to an exit.
Yeah.
David is our resident architect, so he can pick up on that real quick. So let's get that out.
Second question, and this is framed as an evacuation plan, which is great, but what I'm wondering is, Peter, are there any structural, I use the word structural in quotes, but any issues, safety amenities that get preloaded in before there's an incident where they have to evacuate? But I mean, the simplest thing would be like fire extinguishers.
Yeah.
Another thing might be sprinklers. A third, and I'm thinking about, the wood frame construction here. Is there something that gets done to walls? Is there something that somebody like you wants to put in a building so that we avoid the necessity to evacuate?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain requirements, for fire extinguishers, and I know part of the building is sprinklered already.
Okay.
There,
I mean, you don't have to answer now. What
Yeah,
I'm
but
saying
just-
is,
yeah.
in addition to this, is there something else that we need to be thinking about
Yeah.
to avoid of something like that happening rather than just getting everybody out when it does?
Yeah.
And again, placing them with these sprinklers.
Yeah.
For fires.
Jeff, today I got a letter from, you sent me the letter from your wetlands guy, Mr. Peter Ferguson.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'd like to do with that, well, we could do one of two things. Either we'll have it reviewed by our guy, but I actually think the better thing is to send this to the DEC, for the applicant to send it to the DEC. If you need who to send it to, Helena, can you be helpful with that?
Sure, it's central office, but I'll get you, if you need the address.
In New Bluff?
No, central, it's the new wetlands law.
625 roadway?
Yeah,
It's in Albany, right?
yes, it's a website specifically for wetland delineation since the laws changed 1/1/2020.
So I don't doubt anything that your expert wrote here, but we're gonna need a letter from the DEC that says everything that he says here. He agrees to, or they agree to.
Well, I think first they screen it and then it's a whole new
Whole
process that
process,
the DEC is figuring out. We don't hear from them, there's a process, if they don't reply, there's remedies for that, so they're not in limbo.
Okay. So again, make sure the board gets a copy of that communication, so we know it's underway.
Who should I communicate that to?
Okay.
Okay.
Signage, I know there was I saw a picture of some of the signage that you're recommending. You're replacing the existing signage outside of the, as you're coming up the property,
Yeah,
correct?
like the buses, and then we have the signage for the ADA as well.
All right, so the specific signage you come in, you're replacing that question mark, or are you doing more than that?
I think we're proposing signage for like the school bus entrance and the school bus
Oh, all right,
exit and the
okay.
school bus drop off.
Okay,
And then for the signage for the actual development, I think that's existing.
Yes.
Yeah, that's existing. Like this, like the name of the development that's.
so I'm gonna have our engineer also look at the signage to make sure it meets all the
Yeah,
codes.
of course.
It probably does, but you have all the sizes there
Because they have schematics.
and schematics. Okay, so that's all there. He can take a look at it.
Yeah. If we don't have the sizes, they can add them. I think I have just a picture of the signs.
Well, he'll take a look at that sheet and
Yeah.
whatever else he needs. Jeff, can our engineer speak with your engineer? Mr. Maddox, okay. And you got us an ag statement, that's on file now. All right, I've run out of things on my list.
The creek setback,
I can't hear you.
the creek setback.
Oh, the Marbacus, if you need to have the creek in the back, all the way in the back of the main building. It needs to be 100-foot setback marked on the map.
Yeah, I added it on the most recent plan dated 4/8/2025.
Okay,
So we have the 100-foot buffer for the creek on the map.
okay.
I'm not sure if you guys have the latest printout.
I think that's page
And
page
the-
5 of
Page
5.
505 should have the
Okay.
100-foot buffer for the creek.
Dave, I'm sorry, what else?
Oh, well, when we met with the applicant, you're still, position is. You're just renovating existing buildings, there's,
Correct.
other than some signs for the bus movement and the. ADA parking, maybe some restriping of the lot, there's no physical disturbance to the property gonna
Correct.
happen?
I do want to note in the letter from Peter Torgerson, there was an very early application in this that they had thought about changing this, I guess, a mini golf course, their miniature golf, and they're gonna make it into a playground, but that is not on the latest thing. So the first paragraph on this wetland letter is not relevant to our proposed plan, but we did, since it was important to the board that we get in a wetland plan, we did want to get it in. So other than the first paragraph, everything else is relevant, but they are not planning to change either. I think at that time they were talking about renovating a residence on it and switching out the mini golf, but they're not being used. Not relevant.
Yeah, so you probably wanna. Edit that before you send it to DEC,
Yes. I
Because
would
they're
have done
gonna be
everybody,
interested
except
in-
I didn't want to make it seem like I was trying to X something out, so I'd rather, this is very quick. We got it on Friday and we couldn't get from the guy the deleted, but I will submit to the
Yeah.
DEC that. Does anyone want, I have extra copies of this.
I think everybody has a
Did
copy.
everyone get it, or
Everybody has a copy.
everyone has it?
there's a DEC's process, which is now new. They're gonna wanna know, is there a possible wetland there?
Yeah,
And what are you proposing to do that might impact the wetland to see, to make their determination? If you say you're not doing any land disturbance. But if they find in your submission that you reference land disturbance, they'll wanna know more.
yeah,
So it's still true, no land disturbance.
no land disturbance,
no-
no construction.
We talked about you were gonna. There was, I think in one of your appearances, there was some. Talk of possibly doing things on the other side of Cherrytown and Ridgeview in terms of. You know, camp play areas or something, there's nothing proposed, you're gonna do nothing on the other sides. Do you have to do anything to? For the water supply or the.
I don't believe, I think everything is the way
Okay.
it would which we've done. in-
So I guess we'll have to have the board will have to have for the record that there's no land disturbance proposed except improvements, I don't know, I'm not put words in your mouth. Possible improvements to the parking lot and signage for bus and ADA compliant, is that right?
Which
Yeah.
is for us, I mean, that's what they're representing, on making the site plan. approval.
Right. So that's, I think for some of the board members, it's not clear. You might want to just make a statement, put a note on the map about land disturbance limited to. If that's, I don't put words in your mouth, if you're contemplating other changes. And then the other issue was, which I guess will be referred to the engineer, is the planning board's heard from neighbors up the road on Ridgeview that they've had water supply problems. We have no idea if a mile away has any relationship to what you're doing on your property. But I recommended that engineer review look at the water supply demand and capacity.
So
and
that's what,
and potentially stress test the wells.
well, that's what Greg is gonna be looking at,
Right.
okay? He'll look at the report from then and back.
Because
based upon-
it's been represented to the board that the larger neighborhood has some emerging water supply problems.
But,
Greg is aware of that and we'll
At
wait for
the
his
same
report to
time,
come back.
new subdivision, like was approved 2021. On Low Cherry Town Road, remember that project?
Across the street,
Cossack,
Yes,
it's a new subdivision there and it's, how it's gonna affect them. Not the guys in the 1.7 miles away.
you're talking about the ones right across the street,
Right,
right,
On Cherrytown.
on Cherrytown,
right.
okay. Jennifer?
So I know Greg will be reviewing the water. I know Greg is going, our engineer is going to review the water and sewer document, but something I wanted to point out is that as an attachment and an enclosure in that submittal, there's a 2007 letter from Ulster County that indicates the design for the septic is for 72 people.
Right.
I did some quick math and if the design standards remain the same, the septic system would not meet design requirements for 172 or whatever the new number is,
Correct.
right? You've
Yeah,
noticed
no,
that?
and I mentioned it to Dave Church. The design standard utilized by Dean Palin was 125 gallons per day. I don't know where Barry Menbach came up with the 55 gallons in his determination, so.
Right.
And then the DEC permit for the groundwater discharge is also based on the other design standards of I'm just gonna say 9,300 gallons per day. So actually DEC permit was 9,000 gallons per day. So that I've seen that whole and
Very inconsistent.
yeah, it's just an inconsistency and they don't know where the numbers come in.
And
I believe I spoke with Barry about that, and Barry said he looked through the examples of what's the closest to, and hotel motel was the closest, and that's where you got the 55 gallons.
Well, our engineer will look at it and we'll look at it and we'll see, but
Your engineer will talk to our engineer and they'll figure it out.
yes.
Jennifer, would you mind, you've done this before with
I have some questions. I won't bore you with any.
would you refer those to Greg as well?
Yeah. I'll
Okay,
send it to
like you have-
Jen. Yeah, sure.
We'll
But I
Yeah.
wanted to mention it here because that seemed to be a larger
Right.
issue with septic capacity.
Yes.
But then to your point, also the water supply and consumption piece.
Well, that and the design flow for groundwater discharge, because that was the
Yes.
whole thing that Dean Palin was looking at.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we get the two, the DEC and the DEP, just collaborate with Greg and give them your input. And
Sorry.
Yeah.
just make sure you keep the
I'm terrible.
drawing board. up
Yes.
to date. Okay.
Yes, and then, I also wanted to mention that I think that EAF may need to be resubmitted because there were some blank answers. So you might want to take another look at that and just confirm, maybe resubmit.
Yeah, there's no checked box on wastewater.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I think that must have been me in redoing the other one, and I missed it, but it should have been checked.
And I believe in the EAF, it did say as far as other approvals, it did highlight Board of Health and DEC. I did see that.
Yeah, I think that the DEC already, they gave the speedies permit at one point, and I think the Board of Health is because annually. You can't have something like this without a Board of Health.
Prevention.
Permit, so.
Yeah.
I don't
but,
think- Well, I don't know if I'll have to take another look. I'm in the middle of emailing you.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, that was one thing.
Peter?
This is maybe a question for Joseph on in the map section, the building layouts from their marked documents 2024-10-01. It was a bunch of stuff done through Plan A, drawings of different parts of the building. It's not on that written map. It's on it was a 18-page document that was submitted.
Very confusing.
Yeah, it was, the thing I found confusing about it is that if we're supposed to read it because of the multiple levels of this building, the details don't identify, it says enlarged floor plan, gives the location of the place in the building, but it doesn't say what floor it is.
But it's from like a separate document on the site.
Well, it's submitted, and if it's still current, I found it very confusing to read. Because the building is broken up to sections, and when it goes to the enlarged floor plans, details of the building, it wasn't clear what floor they were on, they weren't marked. What floor, there's some places that have 2 floors, some places, so just a point on that, if we can clarify that.
Yeah, I can clarify it, and we can always try to work with the architect to make sure everything is consistent.
Yep, and then question for Mr. Church is, this is, shows up as prime farmland on some of this.
Sorry, is there.
Already there, I know, this is
I think it's already there. There's no disturbance anticipated.
Okay.
So we're good.
Let's make a note.
And they're not subdivided.
Okay.
They're not so fine.
So I have a question, does the change of use trigger a requirement for a new certificate of occupancy?
Good question.
I don't know, I don't think so. It might, sometimes it creates a requirement for site plan approvals. But on the building side,
I just wonder how much review is involved.
How much review is going to happen in the building department?
Yes.
Yeah.
How much is required?
I'm assuming, I mean, this is a big change of use
Yes.
from the previous use, right?
Yes.
Of 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And then the other change of use, which is, it's still a camp, but now it's under the aegis of a religious society. I don't, it's still the same. It's still a big change, not because it's a religious site, but because it's gonna have 157 people as opposed to 75 people.
yeah, that might, more than
That's a
anything
big
else,
change.
that might trigger the, I know the old,
occupancy?
yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, yeah, I look at things like, ADA ramps, number of bathrooms associated with the public space or public spaces, dining halls.
Well, they're doubling the permitted occupancy.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean,
And
they're
they-
doubling from the previous occupancy to the current, to the proposed, so depending on what the CO said, yeah, I mean, that's.
Yeah,
Door sizes for egress.
I have no problem with that, but basically what's gonna happen is the building department's gonna go in for its fire and safety. And they're gonna tell us, this is the maximum number of people, and if it's less than we're proposing, that's the maximum we're gonna be able to have. Really not a planning board thing as much as the building department.
Oh, you're quite right. You're quite right. Yeah, my question is really about how much oversight we might expect from the building department. Yeah.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, I have following up on the plan. I think each building should have written purpose of the building, so it is easy to read the plan. Number item 1, another one shouldn't be number of occupants shown in each room, and how they,
That's a building department.
again, building parking.
They laid out for us the rooms. We asked for the evacuation plan. They gave that to us. Dave is going to look at it. He found some issues with it. or whatever number of people, we know they're putting about 4 people per room. And they were built for 1 or
But if
2
they put
people.
4 people per room, gonna be
So-
much minimum.
So what we look at is the amount of people on the site and whether there's enough water and adequate septic.
Okay.
As far as occupancy, how many people you put in, that's the building department, not ours.
We're also looking at safety.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think at this point, because of the reduced population, you're looking at more like 3 people a room at most. Because you've got 70 rooms, 3 times 70 is 210,
Oh,
so that's more.
what's the,
Right, but I'm saying that's why it won't be 4 people a room.
Okay.
2 or 3.
are you proposing the same level of intensity for the workers as you are for the staff as you are for the students?
Yeah, I don't see anyone.
And one more, I think from my experience, I live in a neighborhood, small camp. For the safety of the kids, I think the property should be surrounded by fence and should be only one exit to the street, so kids to supervise 157 with 12 people, very difficult, so they're not wandering around and walking around. The property should be surrounded by fence, only one place would be for exit.
I'll speak to the
So,
owner about that.
for their
At least
safety,
the
for me,
At least the pond area
Yes.
and
it's
the area
definitely
down by the
fencing pond.
stream.
The pond will be
I
fenced.
think down by the stream, it falls off pretty precipitously. Can I just come back, Dave, to your question when this Dave asked and Zorian asked about occupancy, whose role is that? And you said, well, it's a matter of safety, so it's sort of part of seeker. Were you suggesting that we get involved in the occupancy, or is that still building department? I wasn't sure your comment on safety plan, which we've talked about. Are you suggesting that we go further?
The safety plan, in my view, I mean, I'll defer again to Peter or anybody that he suggests, you know, better. But the safety plan is not, first of all, I don't think it should be skeletal. There should be some depth to it. And second, my opinion, again, whatever Peter thinks is very, or consultant think is most important. But secondly, in my view, again, referring to the people that know better, there's a big difference in the safety issues if there was 100 or 200 or 250 or more. I mean, it just, and again, I am not competent on this, but to me, it's a big deal if you're trying to squeeze 250 kids through a series of doors, then if it's 100. And so for me, and I don't have training in it, but yeah, I'd be concerned about it. I'd be very concerned about what the number was, how fast they could get out, what the threats are, how fast the place is going to burn, if it, you know, God forbid, but you got wood there. Yeah, you want to get 3 digits worth of kids and other people out a door, or 2 doors to 3 doors or 4 doors. It's a big deal what the digits are.
Okay,
I mean,
so I wasn't asking
how many-
necessarily, I wasn't asking about that. I was asking more because we're gonna look at the safety plan. I was asking more, what I caught you say when the question came up about the occupancy. I said it belongs in the building department, the occupancy. Are you disagreeing with that statement?
I've told you and the board in the past that to me, a lot of the work that we do is simply can be organized by seeker, because seeker's gonna dig into our what's execution of seeker is gonna dig into these issues. From my perspective, and I'm gonna turn, I am not you guys, but if I were in your shoes, if I was in your seat, I would want to know that this was safe. And I don't come from the, very often people tend to reach for whatever's on the shelf in terms of a DEC regulation or DOH regulation or a OSHA thing or whatever. Those are all great. And you want to get as much intelligence as possible. But the bottom line is it safe? The last time they were here, they were talking about 250, roughly, give or take, 250 kids, or maybe 250 people, including staff. And yeah, you start thinking about 6 or 7 people to a dorm room in a wooden thing. And again, I'm an amateur. I don't know, but that doesn't sound safe to me. Usually we build schools nowadays, and the schools are not built out of wood, right? The schools are built out of some concrete, form of construction. So again, I want to know at the end of the day that this is safe. When you neg deck this, if you do neg deck it, you're certifying that all the environmental issues are addressed and human safety is an environmental
Okay,
issue.
that's
And
all.
that's all where I'm coming from. And to me, the number of people that are involved, so it's not a CO and it's not whatever the rules the building inspector will use to determine the CO. It's, is the population in this place safe from the types of events that might occur there? And to me, the people like the fire department and the difficulty they had the last time and their concerns are front and center. And I would assume that they will take all of those issues and crunch them together. And I hope that's what happens. And I'll just,
Yeah.
I defer to their judgment.
Yeah, and I, you know, again, to reiterate, you know, their past experiences there have been no person on site in charge. No accountability of the number of people and the specific location of everybody.
So you want to know the number of people.
And if we can't find every person, we have to search.
So the number of people is more of a concern, not
Number of
for
people-
squeezing them out the door, but that you can know where they are when.
Know where they are and who they are.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
and particularly because they're children.
It's
Children
like
do different
evacuating
things
an
in
airplane.
fires.
It's like, you know, where's the manifest and how many people are on it and how many people are on it? So
I
it's,
defer to the expert.
I have a question to you. You cannot discount it, you know, how many people in the room. What about a draw you parallel with restaurant? They say in occupancy gonna be 80-some people, so they showing how they're gonna put 80-some people.
Yeah.
So the question is here, why we cannot ask them to show how you're gonna put in residence
Put in
157.
what? Put in what?
In residence, I mean. how-
Residents.
Right.
Yeah.
How you gonna locate them, where they're gonna be, those 157 plus 15?
Again, my only legal advice.
No, I understand that, but shouldn't they show on the plan, that this room gonna have so many people?
If I could just add one thing, and I've been through this on a number of different camps, and the Board of Health in Ulster County has a person that all she does is goes around to the different camps, sees the occupancy, makes sure that there's a good, clean safety plan, and goes through everything you're just talking about. I mean, to me, the two most.
Jeff, is your
important-
safety, is a safety plan that she's gonna look at the same as the one that you sent to us?
You have to submit that safety plan to Board of Health, and then they walk around the premises and they say, this is good, this is no good. I think the two experts on this, quite frankly, the fire department and the Board of Health. And
Is
that's-
it a camp
that's what
or a
it was based
religious
on.
purpose? So is what you just said for camps, there's somebody from the Board of Health that comes in. Would that also
Yeah,
be
it's a-
true for religious
It's
purposes?
temporary residence that they give you a permit
Okay.
for, so whether it's religious or
Okay,
it's a
because
camp.
we
or
changed
it's a
from a
school.
camp to religious.
Yeah, but it's
So I
still a
just wanted to
temporary-
keep the vernacular
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah, they issue temporary resident permits for whatever your proposed use is.
right, so I think that answers. I mean, that answers theoretically what we should have. Now what we have to do is get something that. Is operationalizes what we all theoretically feel we need, which is a safe.
I await the comments from
So-
you, and I'm happy to make sure we.
Okay, anything else?
Just one more question. Will the number of people per room be specified? Students per room?
Will they be certified?
Specified, yeah.
I'll ask, I
Yeah.
assume, I mean, you know, I guess, he can put a max on it, but who knows?
Well, it sounds
He
like
may
you-
open up and there'll only be 70 people.
Well,
or 80.
the reason why I'm asking is that, you know, when we did have a situation there before with the fire department. Where we had to search the building, built rooms that were set for 2 people had bunk beds for 8. In the room. And that's the thing that makes all of us kind of stop cold. Because then you're dealing with unknowns and many more people potentially in the room, and then that goes down to the point David was making about, you know, getting, you know. How many people can you get out a door at one time? And so that's why I just want to be very clear about the occupancy, and somebody's already touched on this. Will that be specified per room? And I think that's an important element, because we can't really, we can say, yeah, the, you know. Yeah, the plan works or it doesn't work, or we need this or we need that, but we need to know specifically how are these rooms gonna be set up? And, you know, how many people per room? So.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, I know you would ask me about a public hearing, setting a date. And I think you would agree that we're not at the point of setting that.
Well, we have everything submitted. I mean, you may want to fine tune some of these things, but
Well,
there's
the things-
nothing that we're missing that you just asked.
You've submitted stuff and now we're examining it. We've got the safety plan that has to be examined. We have the water and the septic that has to be examined. And, you know, just a number of other things that we're looking at. The architectural suggests that some of the evacuation plans don't lead outside, they lead someplace else. So perhaps we have a lot of work to do, which we then turn over to you to say, hey, you gotta fix this. So the last thing I want is to see you here every
No,
Monday.
but here's my problem, Rick, and it's not this board's fault. Believe me, but we had a guy who bought a building for $1.2 million and hired me a year ago. To get approval for this summer, all right? We've got, and excuse my French, jerked around by the prior board so that we couldn't get between March and August, one excuse or another, we didn't get in. We got in one meeting in August, then we got in December. This guy is going off the wall, and I don't blame him. I mean, I've never seen such a lengthy time between getting before a board. He has every intention to use it this summer. If you don't at least start the progress or the process of a public hearing, with the understanding, you don't have to close the public hearing at the end of the May meeting. You can continue it to the next meeting if we don't have enough for you, but at least let the process start, because if you don't start the process, and then first in May, now we're talking about a public hearing in June, you're basically saying, you know, go to court because we're not letting you in this summer.
Okay, so here's the reality of our schedule over the next, and what I perceive as being what's coming back to us from our consultants. We're not gonna get too much of anything in 2 weeks, which is our next meeting. We don't have a meeting in early May. We canceled it, May, whatever it was, 12th. The next meeting is May 28th. It's conceivable that the board would agree, not tonight, but at the next meeting, I'll put you on the agenda. We'll see where we're on with all the things that we've been asking for. That they might agree to put you on a public hearing for May 28th. Public hearings, information we're asking for, it takes a lot of time. Once we start a public hearing, we have 120 days that we could stay in a public hearing status. I hope to God that it's not 120 days that we have to have a public hearing for this. And it all depends upon us getting the information from our people and then you responding to it. And the thing that and water in and out. I mean, there's formulas, whether if the formulas were done wrong or slipshod or they're perfect, I don't know, but it's all about numbers, right? Numbers don't lie. Accountants may fib a little, but the numbers don't lie. I'm more concerned about the safety plan. Right, so I'm not gonna set a public hearing tonight for May 28th. Conceivably, if the board agrees that we've made some progress with what we have to do, the next meeting. I pledge that you'll be on the agenda, it may only be for 5 minutes,
When is that?
the 28th,
April 28th?
April 28th. And I'll get you in early, because I don't think,
April.
I don't know how much,
No, May 28th is the meeting where they may give us a public hearing if we can get them what they.
I don't know how much that we talk about, but you know, I won't make you last on the agenda. And we'll see, but I can't make any promises, Dave.
And again, I just want to repeat, I heard what you said. You gave us a list of things. We were here, we got a list of things. We've complied as much as we could. You have a couple of loose ends that we can tighten up, but it doesn't seem to me to be an astronomical number of things. You know, there are a lot of boards that have planning public hearings very early in the process. There are a lot of boards that give a conditional final subject to engineer's review, and the engineer doesn't come in to the end. I mean, the process is can get stretched out much more than it has to in terms of a planning situation, and that's really what you're looking at. Here's a situation, we're not putting any new construction in the ground. This should not have been a year process. And again, I'm not blaming this board at all for that, but here we are a year later, still talking about whether or not we can get a public hearing.
I think what you've heard from this board is real concern about health and safety.
Great.
About fire safety and about one of the things that is a primary concern for us in all applications, which is water and sewer. And preserving neighbors' amenities to their property, because of the possible effects of not being able to address the capacity, increased population on the site. And so these are things that we have to deal with in order to make sure that whomever is on the site is in a safe situation.
Absolutely.
And that's not a
And
possibility.
if we do set a public hearing for the 20th, if we do, I'm also going to ask you to pledge that if we take more than 20 days, that your applicant will approve that if we're not finished the review. And by finish means that we all agree with the engineering data that there's adequate water. And we all agree that the safety plan is adequate. I don't want to be in a position, because then, I mean, the cudgel that we have, and the cudgel we have, if you don't give us more time, if it takes more time, it'll probably be declined.
Yeah, the bottom line is, Rich, from the issues you have now, within 120 days, either you're gonna get the answers you want, or you're gonna say no. That's really the bottom line.
I'm glad you feel that way.
Yeah.
Not that we would say
I
no,
understand.
but that we'll get the
I
information
get
that we
it.
want, right?
We're gonna do everything we can to
It's
get you
not
all the
our-
information we can, so that 2 weeks from now, you're comfortable at least letting the process start with a public hearing and.
So- I think you have to agree, and if you don't, tell me, but we'll try to do better, but I think you have to agree that this board is not dragging its feet.
No, you've been very good. Rick and Dave came to my office. They didn't even get coffee or donuts, and they didn't care. So we're very happy about that. And we'll get you whatever you need, because again, I'm here to try to get this place open for the summer. For this.
Yeah, but I want to add that at the very beginning, the information provided as a board was very sketchy.
Yeah.
And you also brought different number of occupants, and everything was kind of in a very disorganized manner. That's what part of the issue.
Well, fortunately, that's what the process is all about. It defines the terms and it defines the plans, and that's what we're here for. So,
And I would add that I feel like this is the first submittal that
Yeah,
was really
really,
complete
very
enough
good.
to review. So this has been
Right.
the first time that I have been able to really engage with the plan for this.
I agree.
and part of that is because of you, Jennifer, because at the last meeting I was here, you gave me a list of things and we practically.
Okay. So we'll see in 2 weeks. We'll see what we have, and I'll take the advice of the board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank
Thank you.
My phone, but.
Michael. You're here for Raptov? What are you here for? Oh, okay. I thought you were here for Raptov, and they're not on the agenda.
I don't know if you remember.
Okay. All right, so let's keep going. We've got a bunch of other items to go through.
More?
I've got 5 or 6 items to go through. One, I want to update you on Verizon. We've had 4 straight weeks of not being able, good night. Good night, Mike. Of not being able to do the balloon test for one reason or another, primarily high winds and rain. So we're gonna shoot again for this weekend, with a boom, whatever that means, or a crane,
A crane or a
Crane,
lift, I'm
boom,
not sure exactly what they said.
whatever. So I'm hoping the weather looks iffy, but we'll see.
It looks tentatively good for Friday,
Yes,
And
Saturday gets a little,
a little showers.
Yeah.
do we know if the wind considerations are at play when we have the crane? I don't think
as I
so.
recall.
Because it's
they
gonna be
tell-
over the tree,
Anything over 12 miles an hour begins to get iffy.
even in the, utilizing the crane for, okay,
I'm leaving it up to them.
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
it's a matter of safety.
Oh, I get it, I
so-
understand that.
But yes, but it has to be pretty, and we've
They-
had some pretty windy
They
days.
put it up on Friday. Do you know what the timeline is? You know, does it go up at 9 and it's up for a few hours?
Yeah, only that it starts at 10 and it can go to 4. They had to get a total of 4 hours. So 10 o'clock, the last time that Helena was there.
Yeah, I was there for
Dave-
setup at 9:30, but here I envision crane will be brought in the day before. And
Yes.
then, but I still plan on being there on Friday. Saturday, I'm out of pocket, but I do plan on being there to observe that.
So I think a good time to get there is probably between 9 and 9.
Generally, winds are lower in the morning,
Yeah,
Just a meteorologic thing.
So we will know on so the evening.
We'll know, the night, we'll probably know Thursday morning. Okay, whether or not it's gonna be a go. And they promised to tell me by Thursday morning. If it's a go or it's not a go. Things got a little screwy this past week with the notification. Because they wanted something added to it, which is the second thing I want to tell you about. The only people that are gonna be allowed to be on site are members of the board. You have to have some ID with you. They have the names of everybody and you gotta wear a hard hat. What happened last time is when I put together the announcement for the website, they didn't like what I wrote. I said, well, it's what you told me. So I had to rewrite it a couple of times, going back and forth, and it didn't get out much before, I think it was Thursday afternoon, late afternoon before that notice got out. But about Friday, but this time I should be able to get it out Thursday morning. Okay. The other thing I want to do is on January 28th, 27th rather, I sent out the lead agency
April?
circulation.
April or January?
January. I sent out the lead agency circulation letter
two,
to everybody in the world.
okay,
And 30 days have passed. I had always been under the assumption if nobody says anything after 30 days, we're automatically the lead agency. That's not the case. We have to vote on it. That's something new in some of the regs. So tonight I'd like to vote on appointing ourselves or declaring ourselves and confirming that we are the lead agency. So I'll entertain a motion to that effect. Motion.
I second it.
David, Alina seconded. The lead agency, Robin, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, the next item is the typing. And it's relatively early. So there are a number of issues I think we need to go through, and this is one of them. And I'm gonna leave it to Dave to talk about the typing. My own sense of what we have discussed together is that it would be appropriate to declare it as unlisted. But I wanna get your inputs.
My thoughts have changed a little bit since we spoke. Do you have a sense for the typing? Do you want?
The only potential type 1 appears to me to be the height over 100 feet in a town without regulating height, but you regulate height.
Yeah, right. Let me.
And the wetlands on the site too. We don't
There's no
know.
trigger of
Yeah.
type 1.
That's true.
Lem-
But out of the abundance of caution, should
I mean,
we?
but
Well,
I thought we had a height.
Let me tell you what I'm thinking.
hybrid approach.
Okay,
In general, and I've said this to the board before, at least, and I've tried to sort of, influence this over the last couple of months. Typing the action should not be hugely controversial, and in my view, it usually shouldn't take a board vote. Because there are two lists in the DEC regulations, categorical lists. And you can pretty easily tell 95% of the time where an action falls on the list. And if it's not in either list, it's an unlisted action. So those are your only three categories. There are times, however, the way the categories are written, when it does take some judgment. And this is potentially one of those times. And so my suggestion would be that we do this by motion this time. And there are two sets of issues I want to discuss, one of which Dave mentioned, and there's another one that I'm going to run up the flagpole to see if anybody's interested. The first one, which is the most pertinent, particularly for cell towers, and it's really the only, on the type 1, first of all, it's not a type 2 action. There's nothing about the type 2 list that implicates this at all. Sometimes with small subdivisions or with lot line adjustments that we are, or with variances, things like that, we are looking at a type 2 list. This is just going to be type 1 or unlisted. So the only question is it on the type 1 list? And the one item on the type 1 list that Dave mentioned, which we're going to talk about, is when a lot of the regulations were written, and in fact, probably even up to now, but certainly back in the day, there were a lot of towns that had no zoning regulations. And so DEC, in drawing up the type 1 list, they wanted to make sure that certain things were reviewed somehow. And if there's no zoning regulations, the only way it's going to get reviewed is under seeker. And so what they wrote a secret category, a type 1 category, and they're looking at height. And what they said was anything taller than 100 feet in a town without zoning regulations. Now, obviously, we are not a town without zoning regulations. So the way I interpret that is anything above 100 feet in a town that doesn't have a zoning regulation that's on point. Because if you're in a town and it's got a zoning code, but there's nothing about height. It's almost like there's no zoning with respect to that particular project. So reading it, anything above 100 feet in a town that doesn't have a pertinent zoning regulation. This town, in my view, I think in Dave's view, it does have a pertinent zoning regulation. The zoning regulation says that the limit for a cell tower is going to be the height of the trees in the vicinity plus 50 feet, which we're estimating to be somewhere around 95 feet, 100 feet, something like that. This is now it happens to be violating the zoning. It's nowhere near the zoning. It's clearly in excess of it, which requires them to apply for either a variance, which they originally did, or a waiver from us, which they're doing. And so that throws a little bit of a quirk into it. So by the black letter of the law, this is the town that not only has a zoning code, it has a pertinent zoning regulation. So by the black letter of the category that DEC has put into 617.4, this would not apply. This would not be a type 1 action because our town does have a pertinent zoning regulation. Having said that, they're violating it by like 50%. They're way over it, and they're applying for a variance or a waiver. Now, the way I'm reading that is the zoning regulation still applies. We will apply the criteria for a waiver that we're going to have to essentially come up with, but they will be somewhat consistent with the criteria for a variance. We're still going to work out the exact language, but we're going to, it's going to be whether it's in the public interest, that sort of thing, whether the infringement, the excess, the variance, so to speak, is merited or is outweighed by the impact on the community. And we're doing a very extensive seeker review anyway, which is really what the seeker regulation is all about, is making sure you do, what's called by the courts a hard look. So where I come down on this, and I think where Dave comes down, is that simply as a matter of law, it's not a type 1 action, but we're going to take a really hard look at it, basically as if it was. So we would, under those circumstances, we would call it unlisted with the knowledge that we're going to go ahead and do this sort of waiver procedure. What do you think about that? That makes sense to you? So that's where we're at on this.
And they have a full environmental assessment form and other such documents coming, right?
Bring up a point. We don't have to do it tonight, and my preference is to discuss it, but not to make the final vote. Verizon is supposed to be here at the end of the month. They're not here tonight. They're supposed to be here with the site plan. I'd like to have the discussion and get their input at the end of the month.
I would too.
Rather than us going ahead without them here. And they know that we're meeting and they know we're talking about this, because I got a call from their attorney to say, see, it's on your other items. What are you talking about? So I told them what we're talking about, update, typing and all that. But my feeling, we just chatted about his view, my view, our view potentially. And I think it would be prudent that we wait till the end of the month to make a final determination. But we can have a robust.
I think that's correct. I'm disappointed they're not here to discuss it, because what I'll tell the board is that if we type it as unlisted and it goes to court, and the court were ultimately to look at it and decide that we really kind of made a mistake here, that could be a significant factor in overturning the approval. And so that's on the table. And as you know, there's at least one attorney who's written extensive correspondence in this, one of which requested, or depending what verb you want to use, demanded that we did classify it as type 1 action. Now, his presentation didn't have a lot of careful rationale to it. In fact, he didn't cite the regulations. So that we're doing more about that than he is. But you're aware we're under a kind of a microscope on that, and so that's why we're approaching this with a great deal of care. And that's why we're having this discussion. And in fact, the risk, if we were to type it unlisted and ultimately that was to come into question, I mean, obviously Verizon has arguably a greater risk in that than we do. And so you want by the same token, Verizon might have a very strong opinion as to whether or not they want to see it as a type 1 action, which might require certain other things, which we can also talk about. So it is a worthwhile conversation to have with them, but it's worthwhile also to lay it out on the table for us to so that we understand it. We can either wait and defer till Scott's here, or we can continue now, because I did want to go through the other rationale.
I would like to wait, but if you all want to continue,
Makes sense.
if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
If you have questions about what Dave just went through, please ask them. But we're gonna go through this again on the 28th, basically. So
Can you refresh our memory? So what would be the difference in the process considering
Okay.
unlisted versus?
There are, I think, 4 just flat out procedural differences and 1 conceptual one. The procedural difference, and many of the procedural differences, we've already complied with the more robust review of a type 1. It's a long form EAF. We have to do a coordinated review. We can't do a condition negative declaration for a type 1 action. And what's the 4th one that I'm missing?
we've done the long
Last deck,
form.
you get a scope, right?
No,
We've done the next year.
that's for a pause deck.
Right.
I'm talking
What's the
about
difference in process
Between, yeah, what's so, I didn't hear
between
your
type
question.
1 and unlisted?
between,
The
for,
difference
okay, for
between
a
the-
type 1 action, you must do a long form EAF, which
Which we
they've
did.
done. You
Coordinated
must do a
review,
coordinated
which
review,
we've done.
which we've done, and we cannot do a condition negative declaration, which we haven't gotten to yet.
Right, that's correct, on a,
And I-
definitely on a
Have
type
anything to
1.
do anyway.
Or no.
I wanted. I had this,
Yes,
but I
you- you
forgot.
decided.
So,
So this is
How about for the
additional,
28th?
additional item
I'll get it.
versus,
I'll have it.
this is additional versus unlisted.
Say again?
This is additional items in our process versus unlisted.
Yes, these are restrictions for a type
Okay.
1 action that constrain.
Yes.
our
so
freedom.
And then the
The
conceptual.
conceptual one is that under the regulations, and there's different ways, there's different words that have been used by the regulations and the courts. But the shorthand is that a type 1 action is presumed to require an environmental impact statement. Now, having said that, it's very important to emphasize that both a type 1 action and an unlisted action fundamentally go through the same review. In each case, you have to take a hard look at all of the relevant environmental impacts, and you must determine whether there's at least one significant adverse environmental impact, which that's what requires a positive declaration. So the presumption is in the regulations. Type 1 is obviously the more impactful category of actions, just because they tend to be bigger. But the truth is that if you do a robust enough review, it really doesn't matter which it is. And that presumption is going to go away once we do things like, in this case, the most likely environmental issue of concern is going to be visual. You got a 150-foot tower that's being seen for however many, kilometers, for example. I'm not sure how many miles it's going to be visible, but maybe 2 or 3 kilometers, maybe more. And so we got to look at that, and we are looking at it. We've hired a visual planner. We and he are going through the DEC visual. In other words, we're going through all the procedures. We're going to do balloon tests that are going to be seen we're going to have simulations. So I'm very confident we're going to do a very substantial review of this. So at the end of the day, in the substances, it's going to wash out. And it's very possible that even if we did a mistake in typing, that the court would look at the substance of it and realize that wherever we come out it's not going to matter. But it is fair to say that if there's another mistake down the road, or a court may, wake up on the wrong side of the bed, it can be a significant thing in terms of overturning it.
So is one way of distinguishing between them to simply say, whether you do one, I know there's differences, or else they would call it unlisted versus type 1. But you can get to an EIS, whether you unlist it or you type 1.
Absolutely. Also,
Wait.
it comes down to whether there's a significant adverse environmental impact.
So most
Absolutely.
of my career, I've been dealing with type 1 actions and.
You're doing mines,
Huh?
because you're doing mines.
Yeah, but I'm going to say 90% of them were neg decked.
Right, 90%,
So
95% of.
just because it's type 1 doesn't necessarily mean it immediately goes to a DEIS.
And that goes
just
back
so
to what
you
I was
know.
saying before, which is that most of the work of seeker, especially in areas like this, are now done up to a declaration of significance. We don't do a lot of POSDEX, and even DEC is going to avoid it unless it's necessary. And that shows you how seeker has evolved from what was originally written, so this is an important exercise, but it's really preliminary to what we're gonna do anyway. And what
Right,
we are
so-
doing right, what we're in the middle of right now.
What would be our argument if Verizon would object?
We'll object.
Type one, if.
They don't want that, well, the type one carries according to the regulations, which I think would be superseded by the work that we do. It's gonna he will likely say if we ask him, if he wants to take that risk, which he may want to do, he may say, look, according to the black letter, we've just gone through half of it. I have another half I want to lay on you. According to the black letter, this is an unlisted action, and calling it a type one when it's not unlisted is both unauthorized in the law and creates presumption that shouldn't be there. He's gonna say, we've shown that this is kind of invisible from all these different vantage points. Calling it a type one is just gonna create a presumption that shouldn't be there. We just need to call it unlisted, do our homework, follow the law, and that's that. And that, and if that's the way, the approach that they want to take in terms of not playing it safe, quote unquote, it's a question which burden, which risk do you want? Do you want the risk of under typing it, or do you want the risk of a presumption of a EIS that may push the declaration of significance slightly over the edge where maybe, according to his perspective, might not be.
All right, so let's,
GEIS is a lot of work and you have to go through scoping and,
Which is why we don't do it.
right, well, that's why we never.
no, we don't do it because it's a lot of work. We do it because it's not authorized.
Well, no, but you,
Well,
as long as you
well,
get the data,
It's,
that's the thing with the type.
the
one.
word significant adverse environmental impact meant something different in 1980 than it does now. Because of the amount of work involved. It's just that if you tell what's a significant impact, a significant impact is one that requires an EIS. And as Helena said, EIS it takes months, it costs, tens of thousands of dollars. I'm starting to learn that. I'm still functioning on on 20th century parameters, may cost hundreds of thousands of dollars now. And so, and they may go, look, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do the analysis anyway, why should we formalize it with all this? And you do it if there's really a set of complicated impacts you need to do. It's just a different set of parameters. So we're gonna do the work, and the people in the public may object to it, and you have to be aware that, there may be difference of opinion, but we're gonna do, obviously the work that is being recommended by our consultant.
All right, so let's leave it on the table for today, and let's come back to it the 28th when Verizon is here to weigh in. I think that's the prudent thing to do.
And I'll consult with Dave on my second set of concerns, so we'll have
All right,
we'll have a tighter presentation on that.
and the next item, meeting cancellation. We canceled May 12th meeting. We didn't vote on it. We're supposed to vote on it. And I couldn't find in the minutes that we voted on it. So can I have a vote? Have a motion to cancel the May 12th meeting.
I make a motion to cancel the. May
Alina
12th
made the motion second. Peter, everybody in agreement? Anybody opposed? Fine, thank you.
Can I ask a question though?
Yep.
We were talking about the 28th, May 28th is the
No,
meeting.
April 28th.
No, she's talking
I'm
about.
talking about, we're canceling the 12th, May 12th. We've talked in here about, the May meeting is May 28th,
Yes. Yeah, because Monday's Memorial Day.
but the town board calendar shows it as the 27th.
That's wrong.
Yeah, it's wrong.
It's Memorial
So
Day.
Can somebody fix that?
It is the 20s, and I don't know why it says that
No, it's
because
grievance day.
it's
That's why.
grievance day. So you can come and grieve.
So, but can
That'd be
somebody
extra
update the town
credit.
website? so
You
that
can
it's-
bring ashes and grieve, no. So it's the 28th.
But can somebody update the town's website?
It hasn't been updated yet.
No, it's.
I
I
wrote
wrote
it on
So
there.
we're having a meeting May
June.
28th.
Yeah, I did already.
Yes, which is.
We're having the
Wednesday.
meeting on May
Okay.
28th.
Oh, it's the Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday, because Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
I
I'll give
looked
you-
I looked
how
at
about
April
sign
and it was
language?
April, it was the last Monday and it was April 28th.
We have
so
a
I-
meeting on April 28th and we have a meeting on May 28th.
Okay.
May 28th is because
Thank you.
Memorial Day and grievance day.
Missed last week's.
And would you make sure you,
I have it already, that it was at the date.
okay, next item. We had two lawsuits in the last year that we've experienced. One was the racetrack and the other one had to do with the granary. So both have been settled. We
No,
essentially
no. It was what decided.
decided, thank you. That's why he's the lawyer and I'm just the wag. Well, essentially, we lost the racetrack and the granary won the granary. but I'm gonna let the attorney
Yeah,
go
the-
into more
Both
detail.
the decisions came down Thursday and Friday, which is kind of remarkable. I'm not gonna talk too much about the granary. It was a very nice win. It was an important project for the town. And I just want to thank Mary Lou Christiana for defending our decision. She did a great job, and we've got that, and it's really a positive thing. And if anybody wants it, I can send you the decision on it. I do want to talk a little bit about the racetrack. Let's talk about the court decision on the board. This was in part, just so everybody knows, this was a lawsuit where the applicant did not show up. And that's just a minus for anybody on the respondent side. It makes the board, it makes the town not less enthusiastic about defending the lawsuit. We do have the option to appeal it, which you guys should consider, but I can't imagine we're going to do it if the applicant the permittee doesn't want to commit any resources or help us out. You can take that for whatever it's worth. That's an option, and we have to exercise that option fast, at least in terms of reserving our right to do so within 30 days. So I'll throw that out on the table. And by the way,
Tonight I want to take a vote whether we want to continue with the racetrack lawsuit. So that's part of the
we
reason
need
why.
to, and just so you know, on the Accord Granary side, the petitioners also have the right to put in a notice of appeal within 30 days. So we're waiting to see what happens there before it's finalized. Now, on the lawsuit, it was a really scattershot approach in terms of accusing us of a lot of different things. So there was like 10 things that they accused us of, but 3 of which the court did agree with them.
Which one you're talking about? I'm sorry.
The racetrack.
The racetrack. Did I say Granary? I'm sorry. The racetrack. The court agreed with 3 of them, and I want to go over them because they're really important lessons for the board. And they also work together, which was the problem for us. Number 1 actually was a typing issue, and that's where some of this comes from. And the problem there is that everybody knows what the racetrack is. You guys weren't, when you weren't on the board at the time, but you know what was that?
They know what it is.
It was a proposed expansion of use, not for racing, but for other events. Apparently, some reason we didn't know this during the process, there was a historic site located very, very close to the site. And the way the regulations, we're going to talk about this regulation the next time. It's one of the ones that I'm concerned about. If there is a historic site or certain other types of sites in close proximity, what's called substantially contiguous, that brings the type 1 thresholds way down, cuts them 75%. So instead of needing whatever it was of X number of parking spaces, it's
Parking,
parking is one
it's
of
the
them.
parking threshold,
Right, so the parking threshold for type 1 action, instead of whatever it is, instead of being,
500.
it's
I think
500,
it's 500.
instead of being 500, it comes down to 125.
Right,
According to type 1
25%
action.
of the 500.
And that's actually the one we got caught on because they put it in, we beat them down on parking in the process from like, it actually wasn't even specified, but it could have been as high as 1,500. We beat them down to 499, which raised some skepticism because the parking threshold 500. But because it's a type 1 act, because there was a historic site functionally across the street, substantially contiguous in DEC's terms, that cuts the threshold down 75%. So it gets down to 125, which was clearly over. And so that was
The
one.
Colonial Farmstead, it's across the street, basically, right?
It's a house.
It's listed, I forgot the family name. It's a family farmstead.
Right, but
It's
I
listed
believe
on
it's
the
a
National
stone
Register.
Here.
It's across the street near where the
let's keep
entrance.
So we mistyped it and we missed that, and that is something we shouldn't let it do again. I can look up.
The Lucas Crum Historic Stone
Lucas
House.
Crum Historic Stone House, and you're calling it Farmstead, but it's Lucas Crum Historic Stone
Okay,
House.
come on, let's go.
Okay,
Correct.
number 2 is the biggie. In this project, as in some other projects, there is one of the seeker issues that emerges is the potential to generate noise. And noise, essentially what we kind of default to for seeker purposes, I mentioned, sometimes in terms of determining whether there's going to be a substantial environmental impact, what we default to is whatever the regulations say. It's not a great idea, but it's what's typically done. Our regulations, as you guys may know, is something that's going to increase the amount of noise at the property line by either 5 or 10 decibels, which puts it into some different categories of what we need to do. So what we're doing is measuring whether the thing is going to create more noise at that level. What the board has done traditionally, and did in this case, was what the board's supposed to do, let me start with that. The board's supposed to treat noise like every other environmental impact, which means you don't build it. See what, when we do runoff, you don't let them build it and then, you know, see what we need to do to catch the runoff. You model it beforehand. It may not be perfect, but what you do is you get the engineers in a room and with whatever, you know, curves they have, whatever equations, and they model what the impact is, and then you go ahead and design the project, mitigate around it. For some reason with noise, that's not what the board did, and it's not what the board, I think, did before that. What they did was, they essentially don't bother to look at it beforehand, except in one particular that I'll get to, permit it, and then make sure that then they repeat the town code requirement, which is that you can't go more than 5 or 10 decibels above in what we call the delta, which means the difference. And then make sure that then what they do is to show that they're doing something. They, and what we did was, we specify what's called a baseline, because to measure the delta, you need a baseline. So they, like, you take the baseline at Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. Yeah, ambient baseline, that's right. And that's just not what you're supposed to do. What you're supposed to do is to get a sound engineer and like if in the original application, they were gonna hold music events, that was ultimately pulled, but they were gonna do that. So what I says, I wanna know where the speaker is, and then we can get a sound engineer in to model, if the speaker is at a certain number of decibels, what the delta is gonna be at the property line, which might be 100 feet away. As long as we know where it is, we can get a sound, and that was not the procedure that we use, that's the procedure that we have to use. Helena probably knows all about this, because she's been doing it for decades, right? Do mines cause any sound problems?
No, because we mitigate them.
Exactly.
You build a berm.
So that got us in trouble. And the third thing that got us in trouble was we just punted the traffic issue. I mean, this was going to, even if we get the cars down to 499 parking spaces, the question is, what is going to be the traffic issues on these roads? And what the chair at the time said was something along the lines of, we don't have jurisdiction over that, which is nonsense, because even if you don't have permitting jurisdiction, if you're the seeker lead agency, you've got to look at all the other environmental issues. If there's another board with jurisdiction, they're called an involved agency, whether it's DEC or somebody else, and we will do it, you know, we'll do a coordinated review, we'll do whatever declaration of significance, and we'll send them that information so they can do their permitting. But we have responsibility for all environmental issues, including traffic and including noise, and you got to do it up front. And those three things cost us this case. And the point is to not let that happen again, especially sound.
With traffic, what would have been the appropriate thing to do?
That's a good question. And part of, we can talk about seeker. Seeker traditionally looks at traffic as a matter of congestion at certain chosen intersections, and you can choose whatever intersections you want. And there's certain measures of congestion, and that's a really good measurement for urban and suburban intersections. When you're dealing with rural roads where the quality of life can change as a result of something, if you throw that to a traffic engineer, they don't know how to deal with that. They don't know how to deal with the fact that you used to let your 8-year-old run around in the street and play ball, and now you can't because now you're building a hospital up there. And I'd love to know where the profession is on that, but I can tell you when I was doing a lot of citizens work back 20, 30 years ago, you just could not get any traction on that from the engineers. You have to come up with some other creative thing. So it would not have been clear to the board what to do about, I think it was Whitfield Road, the traffic.
Yeah.
But all you can do is bring an engineer on, ask him the questions, and then, all you can do is go with the answers, but there may not be a good answer for traffic. And
Well,
yes,
what you typically can do is you get a traffic count of what's the existing, okay? And you kind of model that, and then, like for a mine site, it would be 100 trucks per day. And so then,
on a rural road,
on a rural road, because all mines
even
are
if it's not a
typically on
congestion thing,
rural roads.
you're just.
So then you
projecting.
see, exactly, and that's spread out over the 8 hours. So using that same logic, I would think for like the racetrack, if let's say we've already modeled what the traffic is on Whitfield, and then for 499 cars all coming in, that would push it. If you looked at it that way, it would have pushed it over the
I've
edge.
done a lot of traffic analysis. I've done a lot of noise, air, traffic analyses for construction purposes. And in my mind, what could have happened is maybe require flagmen, require people to be out.
Right, then you have the
managing traffic,
mitigation.
Cause you wouldn't put lights in
And-
right around here, but you might require the applicant.
And the board
maybe-
chose not to even think about stuff like that. They want to think about even things like picking up garbage and some of the other concerns. And so that's.
Road maintenance is another thing,
So the-
people are on the hook.
Point is, we can't punt on environmental issues if they seem like they're reasonable. What we can and should do is just find what the best expert we can, ask them, take and consider whether the recommendations are useful. We know there's no reason for us to invent the wheel on the science or anything like that, but we can't just punt it and say we don't have jurisdiction, or we're gonna just send Jerry out later on to measure something. It's not, we need to do, when we do a declaration of significance, we must look at the environmental issues that are reasonable. We don't have to look at everything if it's unreasonable, but if it makes sense, we do have to look at it. There's a rule of reason, but we can't punt.
So Dave, what action my sense is, we could appeal it, and I don't want to appeal it.
I wouldn't appeal it unless,
Okay, so what's-
unless, number one,
No,
the
we're not appealing. Unless somebody wants, anybody want to appeal it?
No,
Okay, so, I'll entertain a motion, to inform whoever we have to inform, and that we do not want to appeal
I
it.
make a motion, we do not appeal the decision.
Second, Zorian, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Would you take care of that?
I will inform Mary Lou.
Okay. Want me to send you a note tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay. All right, next item on the agenda.
Yeah, for a minute there, I was thinking we were gonna get out of here by 9:30, but.
You can't think it,
Uh,
or you're Jason.
You're not
That's my
supposed to
son.
say,
But listen, it's better than 11. You have to.
9:45?
your brain of any expectation.
I'm looking at the clock.
Dave Gordon's.
Bear with me, you may get out soon, because I can't find, hold on.
Please, we give a rest.
I lost,
Then I say-
I lost an hour ago.
Hold on.
Try to do a cut and paste.
Oh, here it is, okay.
I was out.
It didn't
So
format
there's
that.
two more items. This one is easy. There's a new system the town is putting in place for the purpose of making our job easier. Robin's job much easier, hopefully. It's called Muni Colab. Jennifer was involved a little bit in taking a look at this a few weeks ago with Abe, the guy who developed it, Abe.
Yes,
Utensil.
yes.
And Dave's been a little bit involved in it. It's an online system.
Yeah, have we been having meetings, because they were canceled and then I didn't.
Oh, they-
No, they've been training. It's just
Okay.
So
trainings for staff so far.
there's some training that Abe would like to do, online training, Zoom training, I
Okay.
guess. And what we need to do is to treat this a little bit like, if we had all the training here, which is what I wanted, we'd have to do it, open it up to the public, which I don't have a problem with, but trying to get everybody together for another meeting when we're already doing 2 late meetings every month. So I thought it'd be better that we do a Zoom call with your computers, his computer, and he'll walk everybody through it. But then we have to limit each of the meetings to 3 people. If it goes to 4, it becomes public hearable. So
It's the intention to train everybody on that and we're going to use everybody.
It's introduce,
Use it.
it's to
Introduce it.
introduce you to this application.
And
You're
it's-
you're here at meetings with laptops. You're gonna figure this out in 10 minutes.
It's not,
It's wonderful.
it's
trust
not,
me.
it's not that is not my question.
if you don't want to come to the training, you don't have to come to the training. Let's get through this. Come on, come on. I'm gonna give you the dates.
What is the name of this?
Oh,
application?
Muni Collab, municipal collaboration,
Okay,
okay?
okay.
It's like-
Melina, you've probably seen similar software.
That's
packages.
okay, I just didn't hear
It's
it.
permit
correctly.
management software.
Sorry.
Yeah. Just didn't hear it
I was
correctly.
probably slurring my words.
No, and you know,
All right, so the available dates,
No, I-
there's 4 available dates. 2 of them are during the day, 2 of them are at night. Let's see if we can get through this. So Thursday, the 17th or 18th,
at what time?
10 o'clock for both those dates.
Are we
Or,
talking April or May?
actually April, so
Oh,
that's
it's
this
this week, yeah.
It's this week, 17th and 18th at 10 o'clock.
That's in the.
Wait, the 18th, we're gonna be
18th is
doing,
Friday.
the 18th is not gonna work because
Yeah.
that's when we're gonna be flying the balloons.
Well, then you can't do it.
Then I
Well,
can-
most of the town board, I think, is gonna be driving around, right?
Yeah.
Can I speak
Or
for a
planning
second
board?
on this?
Go ahead.
If you don't mind, the system is so much more streamlined. all of you guys could pick it up.
Okay,
You really can, it's not difficult, it really just needs a review and for you guys to go, in short, you have the application. You just can't go to the next until people do what they're supposed to do and get the information. Everything's plugged into one system, there's not envelopes and things sliding all over the place. Each application is contained. Everything that's required from us or requested, we can put into it. And again, if you can't get your name and address in there correctly, it's not gonna let you go, not unless if Aaron, Rick, or myself approve them to go next. So they have to get everything that we're asking them in order to even proceed to the next page to get here. So it's all streamlined, it's really easy, and it's not difficult, it's not confusing to follow.
okay.
I think
I
everybody
was
would
just
be.
wanting to let everybody know.
Everybody would
The
be able
18th
to
is
get on board.
17th.
Okay, let's give you a different date then.
17th.
Okay. We're not gonna do the 18th, so it'll be the 17th
Yep.
or the 21st
And
at
I'm
10 a.m.
For it.
21st. Oh,
or
at
Tuesday,
8 a.m.
8 a.m., no, 10 a.m. Or Tuesday,
I'll be
8
on the
doesn't get up
start line
early,
of
like,
the
he doesn't
Boston
get up.
Marathon.
Or Tuesday or Wednesday, the 22nd or
Patriots
23rd
Day.
at 7 p.m. So
Can
we
you
got
repeat
two,
those?
we got 2 days this week. Thursday, one day next week. I'm sorry, Thursday the 17th, Monday the 21st at 10 a.m. Or Tuesday the 22nd, Wednesday the 23rd at 7 o'clock at night.
I can do the 17th.
All right, so I just want to,
17th.
gonna go around, Peter,
17th.
How many people?
Okay.
Maximum?
3,
17 or 10.
17th is okay for Hans?
Okay.
Alina?
17th at 10.
Okay, so no more slots are left
Okay.
on that day.
What morning?
Jennifer?
None of those dates work for me. I'm crazy the next couple weeks.
Okay, so we'll have special training for you.
It's fine. And
Okay.
I was on a few calls, so I feel like it won't take very long.
Yeah.
So that should be fine.
Okay, Zorian,
What's that?
I just need a date,
Morning,
It's easy.
huh?
morning.
You want morning?
Yeah.
23rd.
It's on your computer.
But I want.
That's the only morning he has. Dave?
23rd.
23rd.
Again, I get the email or something?
You'll get a,
You'll
you'll get a login. And
get something.
it's
Dave.
shockingly straightforward.
Okay.
There's no surprises here. They're hypothetical projects.
Which one do you want to be part of?
I don't need it. I've been there.
What about you,
Trained.
Counselor?
I've actually done beyond training.
Done through Newport?
Yeah.
So you don't want to,
Good.
okay, so, Dave, I'll jump on with you on Wednesday, the 23rd. So Zorian, you're gonna be by yourself.
Okay, fine. We'll be trainer and I will.
Zorian, could you possibly do it tonight,
Specialized
At-
training.
at night with Dave and I on the 23rd? To save this guy,
23rd?
23rd, yep, 2, 3,
I can do tonight, okay.
7
I mean,
o'clock.
at night.
So Zorian. And Rick, all right, so let me just review
So it's
this,
gonna be 7 p.m.
yes,
Okay.
Thursday, the 17th, Peter, Hans, Helena. And Wednesday, the 23rd, Dave Roberts, Zorian, and Rick. You cool with that?
So who will
Abe will
send,
be, I'm gonna send this to Abe tonight.
okay,
Abe will be in touch with you tomorrow.
Abel is sending an email.
He'll
with
send
the
you an
Zoom
email with the link,
information
you
and
know,
the
so-
login.
The invite, right?
Whatever they
It'll
call
be an
it,
invite, yeah.
Zoom
Okay.
invite.
So otherwise,
Come on, you guys.
Just asking.
You'll like it.
All right, last but not least.
9:47. Just saying.
You know,
After you're done, I have a-
Loser.
after you're done, I have a question.
Who had 10 o'clock and then cool?
Yeah.
should do that.
I
You
actually
did.
think I like that idea. Oh, you did?
You wanna start a poll?
Did that already. We're all losers.
Yeah.
No, you guys are
That's the
getting paid.
Pissing
We're the
off.
losers.
well, let's not do this.
Oh, please, I wanna get it out of the way.
What's
Please.
this? What is this?
It's like.
Public meeting, public hearing.
It's a good, this is like Groundhog Day. All right, Dave, if you remember, maybe 2 meetings ago, if you remember, suggested that we come up with a different way of doing
Okay.
public hearings with respect to environmental issues. It's the issue of doing this determination of significance. When we do that, it has to be followed by a public hearing. And so he gave us a couple of options. So I've listed there were three of them. I ruled out one. I don't even remember what it was. The two that I think are on the table are we do everything in the context of a noticed public hearing. So that's number one. So we do the notice as we do now. We open the public hearing and we incorporate, urge whoever's here, incorporate all the environmental issues kind of up front. I almost think that every issue that comes up has some relevance to the environment anyway. So we go through that. It may be one meeting, two meetings, whatever, but it's in the noticed public hearing context. Then at some point, the board decides, the chair decides, he whispers to me, I think you have enough to do the determination of significance, and we do it. On that sheet that we did it tonight, we do the determination of significance. That's done, we fulfill that, and then we just say the public hearing is going to continue at this particular meeting. If we get no comments, I would probably leave the public hearing open one more meeting, depends on how many we've had already. So there's only risk there is once we open a public meeting, a public hearing, we have 120 days to make a decision. You heard it with Jeff Kaplan.
20 days to conduct the hearing. Then
Conduct the
after that,
hearing.
you close the hearing. you have
Did I
50 days.
say decision?
You did.
I did. Shame on me. To conduct a public hearing, to open it and close it. We have 62 days to make a decision after we close it.
That's right.
So that's the only negative side. We've never had a public hearing go more than 2 months, maybe 3. So I'm willing to take that risk because option number 2, which we did talk about last time, is in my mind, a separate notice to do an environmental hearing. We go through that, we go through the expense of that. We close it, we do the determination of significance, and then we notice another public hearing. So we have 2 notices. It just gets kludgy in terms of, I think, managing the process. And will people really understand the difference between an environmental hearing and a public hearing, a notice of public hearing? So my preference, and I know I got comments from quite a number of you, because I asked for them. And my preference is to do number 1, which is to do it all within the context of a public hearing, making it clear to the public, or clear to ourselves, remind ourselves what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it this way, and why we stop at some point to do the determination of significance. So
I just want to point out one thing.
okay.
If you do the second thing that you're talking about, you don't need to do a notice. It's not a statutory thing.
If I don't do the notice, I may get nobody. to
Maybe,
participate.
or maybe there's people there that would jump up and start talking, or maybe you can just put it on the town's website if there's, planning board will have it. I'd almost call it an environmental discussion, a public environmental discussion. I mean, it's not a noticed hearing. In fact, it can't be because there's just there's no statutory or regulatory description of it.
Okay.
You do what you want.
That was sort of my observation, but to get at the real point, which is that we want people to tell us what they think before we make a determination of significance, that we incorporate that into our analysis, right? Given that we have this new Muni Collab, maybe there's a way that we could have written public comments, a way for people to submit comments through the town's website. Maybe there's ways to solicit input on these things before we get to the public hearing.
The public will be able to submit things. I'm not sure it's designed for interaction, but.
Well, I just mean.
If
the
you
solicit
if you
input.
were a public person commenting on Project X, you would have an ability, public would have limited access to Muni Collab, as I understand it. And they can post things,
So
but the interaction doesn't move.
Okay.
It doesn't take interaction out of the meeting room.
No, I guess what I'm saying is that people would be able to access publicly available information. on the
absolutely.
project, and they could submit comments. Even if those comments are not submitted as a public hearing, we could incorporate them into our decision.
All I'm gonna say, it all sounds great, but it assumes that everyone has computers and everyone is going to be comfortable giving comments. I mean, if you looked at the crowd that was here for the racetrack, I don't know how computer savvy many people are,
So
and
you
that's,
don't know
and,
what-
you know, and we're in that transition zone. I mean, just in our society that we all assume everyone has computers, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah,
So-
so
I
mean,
complaining about written.
I think,
So I don't know what.
I think there's a knowledge that in the community that, oh, public hearing is blah de blah, and they turn up, right?
Right.
And they speak. And that's my concern about having this environmental review, about the confusion. Oh, shit, oh, it's not public, yeah, it's some environmental thing. We'll wait for the public hearing, but we want to encourage the
Right.
public to speak earlier so that we can listen to that, right? And so I think there's a common knowledge about what a public hearing is for the planning board, and just to open the public hearing encourages people to turn up.
And in the context of
And
that,
that's what we're,
I would
that's the
agree with
goal.
you.
That's
in the
goal.
context of the public hearing, we could work in this determination of significance.
Yeah.
Keep it open and still be in
Yeah,
compliance.
yeah, because otherwise, you know, then people are gonna hear, oh, they closed that environmental public hearing. Oh, I can't talk now. And yet
I
you
just
know,
want to
we.
make one other point, which
Yeah.
is that the board, unless it wants to, does not have to choose only one procedure to use for everything.
Right.
You can,
Yeah,
you can,
ask.
I mean, if from the very beginning, if there's 30 people here for everything we do, from the minute we break out the subdivision plat. And so we know that they're here and we think that we may be able to get some, extract useful information, you can just say, we're gonna have a discussion, does anybody want to talk? I mean, you could be a loose set of procedures on that end.
That's a
So-
great idea, because for something like the Verizon Tower, where you know it's gonna go on for a longer period of time, and you want that,
So.
yeah.
these
So
are-
I've been in front of many, because the projects, some of the EISs I've done were for very large projects with a lot of concern by the community. And the planning boards would often open it up for people to speak when we were in front of the board. And so we would be on every single agenda, and people would show up at every single meeting and tell us
Yeah.
exactly what they thought.
Some
about
planning boards are
roads.
very informal,
Action.
there's like a table there, and people just come up and sit at the table, and you guys do have an open field in terms of how you run your meetings, and this is just another aspect of running a meeting, and it's separate from the formal hearing. So it could be like a tool in your toolbox, or you can just decide we're gonna do it one way or not, but it's a
That's a good
very
idea to
flexible thing.
vary it depending upon the project.
I think that's a good idea. I was gonna ask that question because it seems like the first option is the most sensible as a practice. But if we need to call an audible on a tricky project that is gonna be have major environmental, get a clue that it's gonna be a major environmental thing involving, wetlands or whatever else, then we can go to.
Or if you just think the public has something to offer,
Yeah,
and then you could even decide on the fly in terms of what you're gonna do, or you can actually do some sort of a notice, like put it on the town website, or just even word of mouth. I mean,
Yeah.
it could be anything, but I just wanna point out, you don't have to over plan it or
yes,
regulate it.
yeah.
Okay.
I
We
think
go with that?
It's good to be.
Yeah.
I'm good with
So
that.
number two going was the exception.
So as long as we know what they are,
Number two going to be the exception in difficult.
then we can just call the play as we see it, maybe a month in advance, maybe.
Can I ask a question? Do we feel like, we're talking about doing these things as needed, which I agree with. Do we feel like we're getting out information to the community and people know what's on the agenda and they know if they're gonna care about a project? Do we feel like? I'm new on the board, so I don't really know what the consensus is about. Do people know what we're talking about enough to show up and?
No, but don't we send letters?
That's a hard one to answer.
500 feet, 500 feet radius, don't we send a letter also inviting?
The official
people?
public hearings,
Yeah.
My-
Yeah.
My,
these all properties within 500 feet
Yeah,
of the boundary of the property in question.
So
Right.
that's, so those people basically showing up.
To answer Jennifer's question, I mean, I don't know, sometimes I don't get calls, but get emails from people wondering when they see something about a public hearing, they have no idea.
Right,
I think the new.
What's a
website-
subdivision, what's a site plan?
that's great.
The new
So-
website is helping with that because the
think so?
public notices are much more
Yeah.
graphic, and I think that
Do you know
people.
what I wish this is not anything we'll ever do, but do you know what I wish we had? I wish we had like a GIS map where you could look and see what projects were in your neighborhood that were up. That would be so cool, because then people could see what's planned.
I got it, shouldn't invent that.
With all my extra time.
All right, so we're gonna be flexible.
Right.
Okay.
Rick?
Yes,
Quick question about the May 28th. Are you sure 28th? Because Jacqueline sent the schedules at time. And on my calendar is 27 as well.
We have, that's an error.
it's an error.
I
It was
wasn't aware.
published, so I'll tell you the history,
Okay.
like Dave tells
Oh,
you the history.
tax grievance day.
Keep in mind, we promised, David.
9:58.
I got 5 minutes to give.
No, you got two minutes. You got less than two. You got 2 minutes. Oh, it's 9:59.
So we had originally said
I
the
make a
26th.
motion for Dave
The
Roberts.
previous secretary, they corrected it and we voted on the 27th. So it was published on the 27th.
Okay.
Aaron came back and said, you can't do it on the 27th. It's whatever day, appeal day, whatever.
Okay.
So we said, okay, make it the 28th. Apparently, the email didn't get to, it's not been changed. It will be changed.
I have it noted
Robin, you will
twice.
badger people to,
I will badger.
I make a motion to adjourn.
a motion to adjourn.
I wrote that down.
Yeah, make motion.
I second, I make a motion to adjourn.
Jennifer makes the motion to
I
adjourn.
second it.
Paulina makes the, seconds the motion. All in favor?
And
I didn't get it first.
Jennifer.
You're gonna make a motion that I made the time.
Paulina made the second. And Peter and David,
So
I
are
just
you
need to,
rushing the map?
this David, I need to see it just for a second.
Have you?
I'm going to right now.
Don't forget, we're still being recorded, so.
One moment.
I lost my leg.
Yeah, my knees could never.
Oh, please.
Yeah, I'm a little under trying. Sorry?